Welcome. Sandoval Communications presents video streaming of the December 2020 board meeting of Sandoval's HOA. The live stream is simulcast on Sandoval's official communications Facebook page, Sandoval Cape Coral. Alternate viewing of this meeting is also available for your convenience 24/7 on our YouTube channel, Sandoval Video Box, and on Sandoval's website, www.livesandoval.com. Consider subscribing to support Sandoval Video Box on YouTube by clicking both the subscribe button and bell to be notified of future meetings and presentations by Sandoval Communications. The meeting will begin shortly. Sandoval Communications thanks you for your support and participation by watching this meeting.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening. The December Board of Directors meeting is now called to order. 6 p.m. Thursday, January 7th, 2021. We'll take roll call. Vice President Ron Spooner.
Present.
Treasurer Bill Tubb.
Present.
Director Scott D. Philippus.
Present.
Director Melanie Palmer.
Present.
Director L. Roper.
Here.
And Director Don Wells.
Here.
Great. And for management, we're joined by our General Manager, Casey Pinella, as well as representatives from First Service Residential. I'll have you introduce yourselves when we flip the mic to you. Thank you. So quorum is established. I'm going to ask the General Manager to confirm proof of notice.
Yes, proof of notice.
All right. And were there any resident comments on tonight's agenda topics?
Yes, we did have 2 incoming resident comments that I'll read. We received by Arlene Tablet. Okay. 2 incoming resident comments. The first one is from Arlene Talbot. I will read the questions and then answer during the gate agenda item. The arm bars on the gate are broken frequently, and even when working, they look atrocious. Instead of fixing, why are you not replacing them? Secondly, we have cameras on every gate. Are you finding the perpetrators? If so, how much have you collected? The second one, which we'll address during the construction update, is from, let's see, this is forwarded.
Ruth.
Ruth
Chigger.
Dear Board, please clarify for me why this decision below was made. This is in regards to the Trafalgar Gate being open during peak hours of construction. I thought no construction vehicles are to enter through the Trafalgar Gate. The residents were told all construction vehicles would only use the Pine Island Gate. This decision was made because the Pine Island Gate is wider than the Trafalgar Gate, which sustained repeated damage from strikes to the gate. There was also an issue regarding traffic reaching to the roundabout and endangering the children walking to and from their buses. I urge the Board to re-examine this policy. And again, we'll address that during the construction update.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have the approval of the past meeting minutes, and there were 3 sets of meeting minutes. Does anybody have any edits or corrections for the November budget meeting minutes that were shared in the board package? All right, if there's no edits, is there a motion to approve the minutes? those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Scott. Second?
I'll second.
Bill, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of passing them as presented? Say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next, we had the December 3rd electronic voting meeting, the e-vote, where we passed the resolution. Does anybody have any edits or corrections to those minutes? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Al, thank you. Second? Don, I saw your hand first. All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented on the electronic voting? Aye. All right, unanimous, thank you. And lastly, the December 3rd, which was actually the November monthly board meeting. Does anybody have edits or corrections to those past meeting minutes? All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes or edit? Melanie, all right, a second?
I'll second that.
Scott, okay, great. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes for the December 3rd the November monthly board meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Unanimous again. Great. Thank you. All right. Very good. So next we have the President's report. So I want to just again say good evening to everyone, and on behalf of the board, extend best wishes for a happy and healthy new year. This is our first meeting of the year. I wish to welcome our colleagues from First Service Residential, and we'll have them introduce themselves, but basically Travis, Eric, and Greg, right? Or Steve, I'm sorry, pardon me. All out of the Estero Regional Office. So we're glad they're joining us at tonight's board meeting. Both the board and residents are anxious and interested to hear more on the status of the transition in property management as we look forward to a positive, effective, and efficient operation going forward. I know and I understand there was quite an effort behind the scenes over the holidays in addressing transition from Pope Properties to First Service Residential in support of our January 1st startup date. I'm sure residents have noticed how things are bustling here at the community center and in the surrounding amenity areas as the preparation for the planned construction began this week. Preparation efforts underway include closing off the larger clubhouse parking lot with the erection of the perimeter fencing, moving the volleyball court, closing down the restrooms in the fitness center, and placement of the portable restroom trailer in front of the clubhouse. We also took down the Christmas tree, so I want to thank the volunteers that were involved with helping out with that. Residents are asked to use extreme caution when entering into this area, whether by vehicle, bicycle, or on foot. Once construction gets underway, it's important that we all exercise patience and understanding, noticing any inconveniences caused by the construction process. Please be respectful of the construction workers, our staff, and fellow residents as we all look forward to an on-time, on-budget completion of this long-awaited project. Director Wells will provide a construction project status report later in the agenda. Yesterday, First Service Residential Management forwarded a second email letter to homeowners encouraging residents to register online to the portal following the instructions provided in the message. Residents will hear more about the portal later in the agenda when First Service Residential Management provides an overview of the ongoing efforts. In the coming weeks, homeowners can expect additional email messaging addressing electronic voting, updates regarding the construction project, as well as ongoing transition efforts from First Service Residential Management staff. Melanie will be addressing the electronic voting later in the agenda. All of these messages will also be posted timely to the Sandoval Community Association's Facebook page, Sandoval Cape Coral. So be checking your emails, and if you're not getting emails, check your spam to make sure that you're kept informed. A lot of good activities going on, some parallel efforts, important issues. We have a busy agenda to address on these important topics, so let's get started. I'm going to turn to Bill, please, for the Treasurer's report. Thank you.
Treasurer's report. The November financials have been posted to the homeowners website, I assume, have they? Okay. I didn't look, so I'll take Casey's word.
Yes.
We received those financials on January the 4th, and they were distributed to the board and to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, and reviewed the November financials. The November 30 balances, as well as the expenditures in the Reserves Fund and the Telecommunications Surplus Fund, can be found in the financial statements presented on our website. As of November 30, 2020, the Sandoval Homeowners Association has a year-to-date deficit, that's a loss, of $19,334. The primary cause of this is the general liability insurance policy, which is currently $99,103 over budget. This is no surprise, as we know the renewal premium for this policy was about $100,000 more than we budgeted in 2020. We've budgeted an amount adequate to fund this in 2021 and have curtailed some spending for the purpose of saving money to pay this insurance premium. I anticipate finishing 2020 with a deficit of around $65,000 to $75,000, as we just approved payment for $69,000 of mulch and will continue to have the normal monthly expenses for December. I doubt we will have the December financials prior to the January 28th board meeting. We completed our transition of management companies from Pope Properties to First Service Residential as of January 1st, 2021. Pope Properties will still make all the payments for outstanding accounts payable, complete our December financial statements, and provide all necessary information to our auditor for our year-end 12/31/20 financial audit. As stated earlier, First Service has set up our owner's portal to their accounting system, so you can log in for the first time to see what your individual balance is. That's never been available to us before. FSR is still loading homeowner balances from Pope Properties, so you may not be able to see your balance today, but that information will be available shortly. Coupon books for those of you who wish to mail checks are now being printed and should be in your hands shortly, so that you can mail a check. If we haven't already voted on this motion, I hereby move that all late fees for the month of January 2021 be waived, to allow homeowners to have plenty of time to make their first quarter assessment payments.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to waive the late fees through the end of January in light of the fact that we're getting the information to the homeowners now as we speak. Is there a second? I'll second. All right, Melanie, thank you. Any discussion?
Correct.
The first quarter payment, right, to be paid by December 31st. We're going to waive the late fees through the end of January.
I mean, if someone was in arrears.
Oh, correct, just for the first quarter.
So if they pay their first quarter in February, will we still waive the late fee? Are you waiving the first quarter late fee through the January, February, March?
No, just
Just-
through the end of
they pay
through the end of January.
In
through the end of
January.
January, then that's
If-
being waived.
Right.
Okay.
Through
At
January
our
31st.
January 28th meeting, we could certainly waive them for February if it turns out First
Okay.
Service
Oh, if
has
there's
had
still
any
a
delay
further
in
delay?
producing the coupon books, but I don't expect that to happen.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so Bill and Melanie. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Quick question.
Oh, sorry, Scott.
We're doing this for the Master Association only, correct? It's not for the individual with the villa homes that have the additional or people with landscaping. So is First Service, have we gotten those out to the people who have a separate landscape one, or that's inclusive of the villas, or are they separate and distinct?
That's the master. That is the master. Even
master
if they're
only.
master with landscape, they're master without.
So it is
No. Right.
master only, as long
Right.
as
No, landscaping too.
The sub-associations have separate, both
Okay.
the villas and the condos.
So Somerville, that would be up to their
Right.
management company, and then villas.
Yeah,
But if you live on
Vareo.
Vareo and have landscaping,
It's
that
included.
would be waived.
Yes, all one master.
Not the landscaping, but the late fee.
Yeah. All right, so through the end, first quarter assessment, late fees through the end of
At the
January.
end of January.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, super, thank you. Okay, great. Next we have the general manager's report, please.
Okay. Shimon. Good evening, everyone. Several of the items will be addressed later in the meeting that pertain to the gates and gate strikes, updates on that. We have a towing contract in place. However, first we need to share several different communications with the community prior to implementing the towing. Management is working to get that correspondence out to residents over the next few weeks. We want to remind everyone using the bocce ball courts, playground area, the basketball courts, that the pool hours, when you go through the gate right now, we've discovered some wires underground that affected how we were going to have the swipe. They were installing it today, but because of the wires, they're concerned if they install the swipe pass, that those wires being disconnected would stop that from working. So at this time, we've had to change direction, and you can access the bocce ball courts, basketball courts, and playground through the regular pool entrance if you're 14 years of age, you have your card, or if under you're with an adult. So you'll go through the regular pool entrance, and then we've opened up the north exit gate on the other side of the pool to where you can exit out of it, and then we'll have it, the mag lock will be unlocked from 8:30 to 5:30, so you can come back in. Effective today, they came out and did that. You can come back through the gate. Through that, you don't have to have your pass, but you will have to just pull up on the knob and open the gate and then secure it back down. So that's now implemented. If it's after 5:30 p.m. and you're trying to get back through, you would have to go around to Clairfont or Astwood, which if you plan to stay later, you may want to park there and then walk across the field. Restrooms are closed at this time. We will need to use the restroom suites that are out front of the clubhouse here. The gym and volleyball are also closed at this time in preparation of the construction starting. Please ensure you update your email contacts to the office staff for new email addresses so that you can get correspondence through e-blast. If you've not been getting correspondence, we've sent multiple, then potentially we need to correct something in our system, or we don't have you in our constant contact. We had a wonderful turnout for the tree lighting this year. Thank you for Board President Kathy, along with the other volunteers who assisted immensely in the holiday decorations. And that's all I have.
Can I just clarify? So that the pool, so swipe cards are needed to get into the pool through the gate. And then if they're going to the bocce ball, what time in the morning? 8? You said 8:30.
Right.
Or is it 8?
8:30. I mean, now I'm second guessing myself, but it's
The pool opens
the
at
pool
8.
hours.
The pool opens at 8.
Is it 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And don't you play bocce at 8?
8:30. 8:30 opening would be a little late.
I know yeah, it might be. I think you're correct.
Yeah,
8
no, the
o'clock.
pool opens at 8. The pool opens at 8.
So, okay.
So,
But bocce you go through at 8:30.
Well,
Any bocce
they'll be
players?
going through between 8 and 8:30.
8 and
yeah.
8:30.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So
Thank
8
you.
o'clock, 8 to 5:30. Consistent with the pool hours. All right, super. Thank you. We'll move to the ad hoc committee reports. And first up, we have Don Wells with the clubhouse expansion project.
It's obvious if you've walked by the clubhouse, the construction has begun, and there's a fence that has been put in place. There are some ways to get through, but the object of the fence is that you're not supposed to go in there, and I would appreciate it if you would respect the fence area. The toilet trailer that's in front of the clubhouse will be here until the restrooms are back in function. The new building permit for the new construction has not been approved as of yet. Information through Stevens Construction reported that the resubmission was made on 16 December and is currently under review, and they expect to hear word next week. The plan, without that permit, is to move the volleyball court, site prep the clubhouse new building, and to initiate the renovations of the existing building. The storage containers are in place for the gym equipment, and I understand that they're to be moved next week. A card reader, as Casey has already explained, is put in place, but we have to determine about the wiring because some of that has been interrupted in the site preparation. And access to and from the bocce and the playground, we've discussed that as well. And the other item is the gate access using Trafalgar Gate entry for the construction workers. And I think that Al Roper would concur that we've measured the width of the gates, and the misnomer or the rumor that that gate's not one of the larger gates is not true. It's probably the widest opening. So for a construction to come in right here by the clubhouse certainly saves wear and tear on our roads going to and from, and I think it's the appropriate entrance for the construction where it is not appropriate for other vendors, and this is an exception to the rule because we're building the clubhouse. So the issue about the gates being open, I think, is something that we should discuss here as a board, and I would open that for discussion.
I'd just like to touch on the gates being open. The expansion committee met and discussed in great detail our plan for allowing construction vehicles into the community. It was agreed upon by the committee that they would be issued ID cards, a specific number of ID cards. It was not discussed at any point that included me that the gates were going to be left open. As board liaison, no one ever discussed with me keeping the gates open. I found out, like the rest of the residents, that the Trafalgar Gate was going to be left open. I personally have an issue with making all our residents go through the gates at 2 other locations, yet leaving one gate wide open, because trespassers that want to enter the community will access that gate. I want to make sure that we think not only about the ease of access, but the consequences of that ease of access. For the past year, we have had great difficulties with trespassers. We've had some very difficult encounters with swearing and confrontations with our security. We had to meet with police officers on how to handle these situations. And every interaction is a potential liability here. We have basketball courts, tennis courts, dog parks that are very attractive to non-residents. And I know it's easy to say, leave the gate open. It's easy. But we have to think about the consequences, have a discussion of those consequences, and then weigh those consequences. And none of that was done, frankly. And unfortunately, here we are in a reactionary situation. And I hope that we can entertain these concerns collectively and come up with a decision.
Anybody else?
Make a comment about that also. At first blush, I think the idea of keeping them open and availing that to construction traffic because of the proximity is a good idea. But in retrospect, I look at this and I said, we made a commitment to the residents that that's going to be a dedicated resident gate. And that would be, and Pine Island would be a construction vehicle / commercial vehicle entrance. And I think, as Ron alluded to, leaving a gate open on social media, you'll hear many times where the board is reprimanded, if you will, by folks on their keyboards about the states of the gates, about they're open all the time. And I just think that lends to more criticism and more blame placed and more folks thinking that the board should be sued for whatever reason. So in light of that, I think we should stick to our original proposal where the resident gate stays as a resident gate and the construction Pine Island entrance is used for the construction of the clubhouse.
And I would just further add, too, that the number of vehicles that are exiting out in the morning with the various bus pickups, there's cars parked alongside the curbs, kids are crossing, and this is between 6:30 and 9 in the morning. Very busy spot for kids and buses. And then later in the day, the same thing, between like 2 and 4 with drop-offs, parents waiting in cars parked along, just outside the gate around the traffic circle. It's a very congested area. And if there's large commercial construction vehicles trying to get in there with the mix of the buses offloading, I think it is a safety issue. So I would like to see use of Pine Island as well.
My comment to this is that if you're paying these people $20, $30, $40, $50 an hour, and you're going to have them sitting out there by a kiosk trying to get into the community to build a project for us, I think you're going to have a rebellion. I see that as a non-solution to a problem.
I thought the solution was that we issue them ID cards. I thought that.
And I think they need to use the Trafalgar Gate.
So let's settle the question of whether we have open gates. Is that even a question? Is that anyone that this board wants? Is that anything this board wants? Open gates?
No.
No, and I mean, I think from just a location, logically it does make sense, Trafalgar. It's right there. But if it's at the expense of having to leave the gates open, I think that's something to be considered.
Well, if you're using an ID card, then you can use the Trafalgar Gate because there's a card reader there as well.
So we have a question of the location. I think it's settled that the gates are not going to be left open for convenience of construction vehicles. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so the location is at issue here. And Don, you feel that the location on Trafalgar saves time for them? Is that?
I think that when you're paying construction workers to go wait and buy a kiosk in line with all the others, I think these kiosks are backed up 5 and 6 vehicles with normal traffic, and you add all those people to it, I think it's going to be a cluster.
Well, with ID card, they're not going to be waiting at the kiosk. They're going to come up and scan their card and come on through the residence gate, aren't they?
Right.
Well,
they would come through the
They will
residence
be
gate
as a resident.
if they have.
Well, I don't know that
My
you're going
question is, can we even open the gates? I mean, these people bought in here in a gated community. Can we leave? This construction's due to last 6 months, correct?
Yeah.
So can we leave those gates open for 6 months and say this is a gated community? I don't think so.
Well, what's the point of leaving?
I think
one
we'd
gate
already
open?
decided we're not going to leave the
that.
gates open.
Yeah, we're not looking to leave the gate open.
With
We're
the
looking
gates,
as to
the
which
gates are not
gate you're
going to
gonna
be
let them
open,
come
so that's a
in.
done deal, right?
Pine Island or Trafalgar Gate?
Yeah. So now we're just talking about which gate we're going
So if they
to have them use.
And I agree they shouldn't be waiting in line on the kiosk, but we did agree to issue them.
But I think you'll have a certain group that you'll have ID cards for, but I think you're going to have subcontractors and all their construction people. You'll need 50 ID cards, and how are they going to get moved around? And I think you're going to have people that are going to come up there that don't have a way in.
You're going to need more than 50.
Well, yeah, okay, more than 50 then.
Every concrete truck that comes in is going to need one.
Right. I mean, I think
Every
that
truss truck.
And then they have access. I mean, we could possibly, I don't know if we can set the time, but then they have access themselves.
Well, that was going to be my point.
Yeah,
when
but
we
how are
issue
you
them
going to
an
access them if they either go to the kiosk or have an ID card?
And we can limit. It's just a matter of getting with Envira and saying this card is active from here to here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and again, that would be a great point because we don't want it active at 2 o'clock in the morning if somebody breaks into their truck and now they have access to Sandoval.
Right.
So I think we need to limit the access on those cards.
Yeah, like 7 to 7 or what time? I think they can't work before 7 anyways, right?
Right.
And I don't know how many, yeah, so I think setting a parameter on who can have the cards. Is it, we have day labor showing up, we have this, who can have the cards, who cannot have the cards.
But again, here's another point too. We don't need to issue 52 deck of cards because we could build them on the entrance list with Envira, just like you would somebody's coming to your house.
But then you put them back in the
But then
kiosk
they're
line.
at the kiosk putting their license in.
But the plumber is not getting paid by the hour. He's getting paid by the job. He bid it by the job, not by the hour.
Well, let's just be practical. I mean, if he says 50 ID card, you want 50 cars out there waiting at the kiosk? That's
Not all there at the
ridiculous.
same time.
Oh, you're creating a monster.
No, what's ridiculous is that we're subject to the board every day from the scrutiny of residents that lambaste us and want to sue us. So I'm trying to buffer that with a logical solution that's agreeable amongst the board, and to just either leave the gates open, which we decided not to, and to go against the residents where we promised them a resident gate because a truck can't drive an extra 3/4 of a mile. I don't think that's holding our end up to the bargain with the residents.
Well, I'm not clear on one point. We go back from ID cards and kiosks. Sorry.
I just want to be clear on one point. So we're talking about apples and apples. ID card. When I'm referring to an ID card, I'm referring to an access card that you do not need to use the kiosk for.
Correct.
So if we issue a number of those with set hours, seems to me that would alleviate the concern in terms of having backups at the kiosk. Am I misunderstanding this?
Well, I think that you need to talk to the construction company and see if that's a feasible option from their point of view for all the subs and for the different employees of all those subs to getting into the community.
Well, we did. Stevens was at that meeting when we discussed issuing ID cards, and there was no objections made at that time. So this is what's caught me off guard a bit. When I see this communication go out to the community that we're just leaving the gate open for convenience of construction workers on an expansion, when in fact this was discussed in great detail 5 months ago and subsequently 2 months later. And this is the first time we are now revisiting this issue, and it's completely different.
Can I be so bold as to maybe ask our new management company, because you've probably dealt with construction and expansion in some of your other projects, and what's a practice that has worked for you, if you don't mind us tapping into some of your knowledge?
So to speak to some of our communities where, I mean, there's still home building and stuff like that going on, there really is construction gates that are open from certain time to time. As listening here to the board, I'd say my biggest concern, or my thought that came to me, was if you're talking 50, 60 cards that have to go to every contractor, subcontractor, concrete truck, just the pure distribution effort of that into making sure the person coming that day has one, it seems to be really quite a process for that to happen. And then outside of that, do you have somebody that is maybe just, somebody from global security, maybe just positioned at certain times of the day, just allow those people, in and out, versus them having cards at all and they're still closed. To help manage that was, thought that, that I have. I think if you're talking 50 plus cards, because the guy driving the concrete truck today may not be the guy driving the concrete truck tomorrow. So
Right.
how do you get that circulated back out if you're dealing with cards?
It may not be the same concrete truck.
And it may not. So I think that's going to be the biggest issue with cards. But most of the time, you do have just hours of the day where the gate is open, for construction.
Didn't we have a guard watching this gate into the pool for a while? What's the difference?
We shifted the hours when the former general manager was here. With the COVID restrictions, we shifted the security to help with the monitoring the numbers.
We don't have anyone in the morning that's on. I mean, it would be, they're per hour, so, I mean, it would have to be billed into the project.
The budget aspect of it, the resource implication.
Well, if we just shifted the hours so they're working the same number of hours, they're just working from 6:30 in the morning till 3 instead of from 6 at night till midnight. Wouldn't be any additional cost. We just wouldn't have the guy driving around in a golf cart all night long in the dark looking for people.
It's weighing out, and really weighing out, and I don't even know that we need to have the gate. I mean, we initially, have the gate open, which obviously that ends now, but maybe not as long, just during a couple peak hours when the construction comes through, and then maybe just paying a guard a couple hours. That would be something that the construction committee.
The guard wouldn't have to be there at closing time as they leave. They can drive out.
No, that's just a couple hours in the morning
to let them in.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I have not monitored the gate. I don't know when the peak ends. I would imagine they're here early. I know they're all gone by 4. But
well, I think they'll always be gone by 3 or 3:30 because that's construction industry standard.
They start at like 6:30.
They start early before it gets hot, and they leave before it really gets hot.
Right.
So if we were to have a guard, shift hours, and have a guard at 6 a.m., let's just say 6 a.m.
With a card, and he could swipe
With a card,
and let
he could
everybody
swipe.
in that's construction related.
Through Pine Island Gate.
Well, that's the next discussion. You and Melanie live in Phase 3, how much construction traffic do you want driving by?
Honestly,
You're-
I'm concerned about speeding because that is such a stretch right now.
I'm concerned about the buses and the circle, the traffic circle, negotiating that with the buses and the parents and the kids in the dark, school's in session.
But are you comfortable with having all that traffic going by your street?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean,
Well, that's the question. If you are, then you are.
I mean, I see what you're saying with the buses and stuff, but if they're literally just coming up, we really don't have any backup. Before, when we had visitors coming in that gate, it would be backed up and people were going the wrong way around the rotary and all that stuff.
Arguing with Enviro about, well, you ought to let me in.
You know, and yeah, because they were waiting.
I
But
think 75% of the construction vehicles are going to be pickup trucks anyway.
And if,
You know, there's not going to be 15 concrete trucks coming in one day very often. You know, the day that they pour concrete,
Right.
there might be, but
it might be just a couple of days. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it gets as backed up now in that area. It seems.
right.
You got two entrances for two residents.
No kiosk, it doesn't back up.
No.
all right. So is there a motion tabled yet? Does somebody want to make a motion? Or do you still want to discuss options?
Well, I don't know where we've come up with 50 or 60 cars, frankly. I think that's a lot, and I don't expect anything close to that, frankly. This isn't a $100 million project, which still wouldn't receive 50, 60 cars, frankly. I think there's going to be peak days in which there's supply deliveries.
Right.
But frankly, I don't think we're even close to that. And we have a construction management company for a reason. We hired them to help us with this process, and we sat down with them to help us with this process, and this was our solution. And then when I went around the room and asked, are we talking about opening the gates again? Everyone said no. Now it seems to me the motion is back to, are we opening the gates? I'm very unclear on what we're doing here, frankly.
well, I think we've already agreed we're not opening the gates. The gates are going to close.
Yeah, do we
But
need,
it's just how are we going to grant access to
I just heard opening gates during certain hours.
With security guard there.
So, yes,
Well,
It
we
was,
are.
yeah.
I'm not favoring opening the gate with a security guard just standing there. I'm favoring giving the security guard a card
A swipe pass.
so that he can swipe it
Okay,
can
thank
to
you for
give them
clarifying.
access
I was not
as they drive up.
So then what would be the difficulty in if we just said 75% of the vehicles are probably going to be pickup trucks or something along those lines, and it's going to be 5 or 6 different subcontractors in a concrete company or two to build them into Envira's system, just like our guests do, or Joe blows carpet cleaning. He puts his driver's license in. He's already in our system, and this is coming into our community at 7 a.m. So I don't think there's going to be a vast amount of people at 7 o'clock on Pine Island Road coming in. So we build the vendors into Envira's system. The one time he puts his card in, he says, XYZ Plumbing for Sandoval. Boom, the gate opens, he's through. Takes his driver's license and goes. Next guy comes in his pickup truck, XYZ Electrical Company, puts his driver's license in and goes.
It doesn't, unfortunately, even with vendors that come. We've added some on Stevens Construction, and Vera, depending on what worker's working that day, will. I'll say so-and-so plumber. They're on the list. Why are you calling? You know, they'll call. Oh, we just wanted to make sure. Are they allowed this and that because they didn't say the right name. So that does. I get the pool cleaner at Somerville, and Vera calls me all the time, and they're approved on the list. So
You're going to have a lot of day laborers who are different people
Right.
every day of the week.
Yeah, I've had 2 landscapers quit because of the duration of time it takes to enter the community.
Well, then that gets into another problem,
You'd have to
too,
get a
and that's another
manifest.
discussion for Envira.
Yes,
So we have a
that's-
fault with our gate company
And-
because
right.
it shouldn't be a question when they're on the list.
But I don't want us to conflate the issues. I just think, frankly, the plan was that we were going to allow these ID cards. And unless we're told differently by our construction manager, I don't know why we're deviating from that.
I think the challenge with the ID cards is identifying who can get them versus a security guard that's there with one ID card opening the gate.
Then they can just print a piece of paper that everybody puts up on their dash that says Sandoval construction worker, and he sees it and swipes it,
Right.
and they come on through.
Or the construction manager gives the guard a manifest. This company, you know, some of the names and
Oh, no, you can't do that. They can't look for,
really?
for Joe,
No?
look for your name on that list. How they going to know? You're going to have to pull up, stop, and show him your driver's
Yeah.
license for him to know your name.
Well,
Secured locations for construction is nothing new. In most cases, larger construction projects are secured locations. And most of these contractors meet at a location and then come in. There are many ways that they can handle this. I think we're spending an enormous amount of time here trying to solve the problem for them, and we have a construction manager I believe has already solved it. My concern here was that we just unilaterally made a decision to open up our gates without informing or discussing it. And so frankly, unless we can come up with a cohesive plan here, I think we stay the course, frankly, and that is to issue the ID cards, and if it's a problem for them, let them convey it. Tell us why.
I think the decision to open the gates was with our construction manager. So he's thinking that's a better deal for him, and that's what he's already settled on.
Well, I wasn't privy to that meeting.
I wasn't either, but I think that's what happened. So I'm in favor of either issuing 50, 75, 100, 150, however many ID cards we have to give them to the people who need to come through the gate, and they can swipe it and come through, or transferring Global's hours so that Global has an employee standing there and he can recognize something that's on the dashboard of the vehicle, and he can swipe them through. Those are my two options.
And can we issue the cards just to the construction manager?
Yep.
And he manages his contractors? Like, is that...
He manages the cards?
He manages all those cards and the contractors. It's his responsibility that anybody coming here has one of those cards.
I think we need to ask him if he can do that.
And then we'd have to set some parameters. Again, the time not before 6 in the morning
Right,
and not
yeah.
after
We'd have to have
4 in the afternoon.
Coded, and they would
Monday
all be
through.
issued.
They're only working Monday through Friday, right? Or are they working weekends?
They may well work weekends as we go on.
But we need some accountability too. That if we give them 50, we need to get 50 back. At some point, they don't float out there. Float out to Neverland.
Well, I'll make a motion that we either issue 50, 75, 100, whatever the construction manager says he needs, ID cards for him to give out and him to police and maintain, or we change Global's hours to allow Global to have one card to swipe and the construction manager to give some kind of form of identification to his workers and contractors and supply people so that person can identify them and let them in.
Yeah, visually display it on the vehicle.
And we talk to Stevens and see which way they prefer and go that way. So that's my motion.
Okay.
The third piece of this was which gate? Which gate are we talking about?
That'd be the next one.
Okay.
In which gate are you going to motion? Include it?
I'm
or
not
no?
putting. First, I'm talking about the way to get in a gate.
Okay.
Then we can talk about which gate.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So your first choice was to issue the cards, 50, 60, have them police it, or shift Global's hours.
Yeah, not my first choice is to issue cards. It is to give our construction managers two options.
Two options.
Let him kind of tell us which one he prefers.
Okay. Okay. Anybody?
Tell me, is the construction manager allowed to authorize visitors?
If
They
we
can-
give him 100 cards, he will be.
No, I'm saying
Yes.
through Invera.
Yes.
Okay.
You can try to manage those.
So,
They have not done that, but they can.
okay.
Just
so,
like a.
So can they, let's say a contractor's coming from Punta Gorda, rather than driving to the Trafalgar Gate, if he gets authorized by the construction manager, he can come in through Pine Island Gate. All he has to do is show his driver's license, correct? If he so chooses, so they don't all have to come in.
It would be that project
to
manager
follow.
managing that, and
Okay.
and that would, I
they
don't
could-
know how much that would be
They
for.
could come into either kiosk then.
Right.
Okay.
I don't. That would be
they
again
use
something
kiosks.
that
Not using kiosks.
if you told them they had to do it, they could.
No, I'm saying,
There-
that was my question. If the construction manager can authorize his subcontractors in Envira, then all they have to do is show their driver's license at either of the kiosks, correct?
But if you do that, you preclude any construction people from coming through Trafalgar because there's no kiosk.
There's no kiosk.
Well,
I
I'm
think,
saying
I
this
think
is,
you're going to back the
this is
kiosks
not
up
by
tremendously if you go this
standalone. This
route.
is in addition to what you said.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, it's so everybody doesn't come to that guard. If they want to, they can come in Pine Island. If they want to, they can come in Veterans.
Yes.
7 o'clock in the morning, it might be a lot quicker for them to come in the Veterans entrance.
Okay.
And let me, again, when Don made the proposal, again, at first blush, it sounds good. Here's my problem that I have. Again, it's, again, the residents who are very vocal in their disdain for the board, and they want to sue the board and do all these things. So this is what you have to deal with then, folks, is you have to deal with us making a decision that's going to maybe not be the most optimum. So there's repercussions for your actions and your words, and we're sitting here for now 45 minutes to come up with a solution that's going to be best for the residents, best for the board, and best for the construction people. So unfortunately, that's the position I'm in. I'm kind of sick and tired of getting the threats of being sued. So if we have to sit here for another hour and hash this out, and it's going to inconvenience residents because of traffic and all of that, then so be it. But that's the nest that you've built. So, and again, I'm not totally against that proposition, but knowing what's going to come out and the vitriol and everything, I'm actually tired of it. So I think the two options are good options, but I would say if the general contractor, or the manager, I would say to tell your people you can only go through the Pine Island gate or the whatever gate, because then we would have, like you said, coming through any gate, and do we really want that? I don't know. Or we just relegate them to just one gate, tell them as the construction manager.
My thought was that they went through the Trafalgar gate, they were away from all the others, or away from the way the vendors come in, the way most of the residents come in, and it just simplified, and they were a little bit, shielded from the rest of the community. And these other options, they're going to drive right through the whole part of the community. We've got all the stop signs, we've got speeding issues. You're not going to have any of that if you utilize this as a simple solution for them to come in. That's my thought.
What about large deliveries?
Well, they'll fit in there too.
They can go, though, the pineapple.
Yeah,
when they bring
they're not precluding a large delivery to go through the other. In fact, I saw the Calusa truck that delivered that large crane, or scoop shovel that's out there, heading towards Veterans tonight when I was walking up here. So they're not precluded to do that. I'm just trying to make it simple for the common laborer that comes and works here that doesn't speak English and might have a little difficulty. You make it simple rather than, complicated. And then, your point of you dedicated this as a particular type gate. This is an extenuating circumstances of a finite period of time, and it's a special project. Once that project's over, then that's the end of it.
Again, we're talking about no longer keeping the gates open. We're talking about
entrance. Where are we going to come in? I mean, if they have a card that they can read, that the card reader will read, then they'll be able to drive right up. But they're going to have to find that card reader, and if they get in the wrong lane, then there's issues with that too.
Or there'll be a security guard
they'll
there.
learn
One
that.
of the two.
I mean, that's the first time in. I mean, I envision them walking up with their card, pointing it in front of the card reader, gate opens, and they come in.
That was the plan originally.
And I think that would work.
And was there, and associated to what gate? Did you have that
There
discussion?
wasn't a specific gate,
It wasn't
frankly.
a specific gate.
Okay.
And
I personally recommended this gate because I think it just precludes them driving all over our community.
My comments are more towards just open access.
Right.
Okay. So the motion on the table that Bill raised was to issue the construction manager a set amount of cards and for him to police them and monitor, maintain them for use by the vendors, the contractors, subcontractors.
Or
To give him an option.
Or shift.
We would have to issue some kind of sheet of paper saying Sandoval construction worker that they put on their dashboard, and we would have a global security employee at the gate
Right.
with a card to swipe them in.
Correct.
How much is that going to cost us?
I think you'll pick that option, but then it's going to cost us.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would offer that option.
I'm against that option, frankly, because we have to pay someone to be there when we can just hand them a card, frankly. We're paying in Vera.
I think we.
Would it be okay to try the first option for the next month?
I would propose the first option.
We'll make Stevens Construction have the app, give them the cards, try it out for the next month, and if there's problems, they're going to let us know. If there's backups, we'll know, and we can reevaluate instead of switching the security hours and paying.
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
Yeah, they don't need the app.
No. They wouldn't be doing
Al was
anything with
saying
the
if
app,
he
right?
wanted to switch an ad. And
They're just going to have a regular access card, like residents.
Right,
but
I
it'll
just was
only open
adding
the
to what
gates.
Al was saying, if he wanted to authorize guests.
Well, I don't think.
We'll call the question on my motion, vote it down, and let's make another motion.
And just to be clear, too, the expansion committee meets every single week with the construction manager. If there's an issue, they will raise it to us collectively.
The next meeting's the 20th.
All right, so those in favor of Bill's option, issuing the cards or putting the placard on the dash, switching Global's hours, and having Global swiping in trucks. The two options to present to the construction manager. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, one. All opposed? All right, 6 to 1. Okay. All right.
Now somebody make a motion.
All right.
Yes.
This is cleaner.
All right.
Swat me with a bat and then move on.
I would make a motion
Okay.
that we issue the Stevens Construction entry cards for all workers who will be coming and with their responsibility to complete the distribution.
Second motion.
And track the cards.
Yeah, police and monitor.
You include that in your motion, Don?
So then,
We can add that.
so then if a concrete truck comes, he can send one of his laborers out to the gate with the card
To let them in.
to swipe it to let the concrete truck in.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
Do you want to put a deposit on these if they don't return them? Because we do charge the residents $25 a card if they want a card. So if they don't return all the cards back, we should have an agreement that they have to pay.
He'll charge us and have his overhead on.
He'll
So
just
no.
slide it in somewhere else. Okay, just asking.
Okay. All right. A second on Don's motion? Is there a second, Scott? Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 7 unanimous. Okay, great.
Now, which gate?
Okay, now we need
Or
to
all gates?
discuss the gate. Is there a preference? Are we going to restrict it to one? Are we going to use the residence gate?
I have a suggestion. I would suggest that Stevens would tell his employee or all these subs that he would encourage the Trafalgar Gate, but they can use any gate that they want.
If we give them a card, they can use any gate they want
That's
to,
what I'm saying.
whether we encourage it or not.
Well, I mean, just would encourage to keep the traffic out of the community by coming in here right to the clubhouse.
But I think there's a lot of people that do not want us to encourage that.
Well,
Right.
I think that's a short-sighted viewpoint because it was set up as a residence gate.
Scott, thank you.
We're not violating the safety concern that the city had when the traffic was backed up around the traffic circle. If they come right up and they go right in, then the traffic should not. If it does start to back up, then revisit it.
Make your motion that way, and we'll vote and see.
Well, the motion I would make is that after issuing the cards, that we would encourage Stevens Construction to have all the employees and subcontractors utilize the Trafalgar Gate with the option of using others if that's more convenient.
I'll second.
Okay, Melanie, second it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Technically, you don't have a vote unless there's a tie.
Over here?
No,
You're opposed? The two of you opposed?
but it passes 4-2.
Okay. Okay, so when is the meeting with Stevens, or how?
Well,
how
I
soon?
think Casey should give
I
John
can
Zonder a
let
call.
them know.
Okay, all right.
And we do meet every Wednesday.
Okay.
And then we'll have a formal meeting on the 20th.
Correct.
20th, every other.
Every other Wednesday, not
20th.
every Wednesday. You won't
Okay.
have too many meetings.
Is there anything else we want to discuss with Clubhouse, or did we? Are we done? Thank you.
Move on.
Thank you very much, Taylor. Oh, this won't be as exciting. The Taylor Morrison litigation.
Oh, it's going to be
Ron.
Exciting. At our last meeting, we had a significant update from our counsel from Morgan & Morgan. And in that update, we had a brief overview of the claims and conveyed that we had an expectation of filing the lawsuit. The lawsuit has been filed. As significant events occur, we will be providing periodic updates. In the meantime, I'm pleased to say that I'm comfortable with the development of our claims and very confident in our position. And that's the update.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Might I ask just one question?
Sure.
Have you contacted the company regarding the lake evaluations? Because I think we discussed that, and we approved that at the last meeting, the funding for that, but it has not been initiated any further than that.
Well,
where do we stand with that?
We got a proposal recently, and it was my understanding that the proposal was going to be discussed in our committee meeting collectively.
So we need a meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
But we recently just got it, I believe, 2 days ago.
Okay. Okay. So do we need to schedule that then?
We do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And risk management, Bill? Any update?
Risk Management Committee met on December the 18th. We went over incident notifications, best practices were discussed. They talked about wanting to see a copy of the First Service residential contract in the area pertaining to risk management and insurance, just so they know what's coming on. Talked about loss control initiatives, getting from First Service any template forms or best practices that they're using where a community patrols and looks for potential risk management loss areas, so that we can adopt those. And then the plan of action was they got a meeting coming up. You remember what that is, Ron? The email we got on the risk management committee meeting. He sent out an email this week to us.
Yeah, requesting some response for proposed dates for the next meeting.
No, proposing a meeting.
Yeah.
When it was Friday, wasn't it? This coming Friday? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow. And I thought it was with First Service, or I don't know if First Service was, Travis sent us the invitation, yes. Tomorrow, and I think maybe with...
No, this wouldn't be Travis. This was
No?
This was from Craig Snyder talking about the risk management committee meeting.
I have Sandoval First Service Insurance Initial Review.
No. That's insurance renewal. This is risk management, about looking for areas where somebody might trip, and how do we prevent?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
How do we?
Apologize.
There was
How do we minimize?
are you referring to meeting over by the tennis courts?
Yeah.
Okay.
What date?
Yeah.
What day was that?
I have it in
Monday at 9:30.
Yeah.
I won't be able to be there. Will you be there?
I believe so.
Okay. So they're going to meet Monday at 9:30 and kind of lay out the area and assign who goes into which quadrant of the property to start looking for that kind of stuff. And that's it for the risk management.
Okay, very good. Election committee, Melanie?
Yeah, so we're basically just getting started. We have our kickoff meeting scheduled for Friday the 15th. The first notice should be going out in the next couple of weeks. For residents that signed up for electronic voting for the last election, everybody is still enrolled. There isn't anything extra you have to do. We will be sending out the form if you want to opt in this election, and it'll probably be available up on our website as well. So there'll be communications coming out about that over the next week or two.
Good. And Becker, with Becker ballots, they outlined the timeline, definitive dates for the first letter, second notice, call for candidates.
Becker basically gave us the whole outline of what our schedule needs to be, of when our first notice needs to go out, the second notice, call for candidates, when candidate bios are due, all of that information. So we'll be sharing that.
And I would just add that last year it turned out that it was very easy to use, no security issues. Also, it saves the community a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
Because part of this, you can opt out of receiving paper mailing and receiving all communication via just electronically. And I believe we had over 600 residents do that. We can increase that to another 100, 200. It has a serious impact on our bottom line. And again, this was a tremendous success last year. It was the first time we did it. So I'd encourage residents to look closely at it.
Yeah, when you get the consent form, there's two different options on it. The first one is if you want to just vote electronically, and then the second one is if, in addition to voting electronically, you want to get all of your notifications electronically. So instead of getting the big packet in the mail with the black and white bios and stuff, you can just pull them up electronic and view them and everything. So. And
there is a third option that you can vote via paper ballot, but just receive all communications electronically. And you can go to the office and request a ballot if you so choose. But
yeah, right. Okay, super. Thank you. Next, we have the cable internet, the new ad hoc group, Al Roper.
Yeah, this is a synopsis of what the Cable Internet Committee has done. The committee has met to begin the process of developing a way forward for the HOA when CenturyLink turns down its video service. The members of the committee are Alice Short, Bill Dunker, Tom Naffel, and Steve Cassens, who was selected to be the chairman of the committee. A list of potential vendors is being assembled so that the committee can interview them and determine the technical options to effect the changes necessary. The first vendor meeting is tentatively CenturyLink this Friday, the 8th of January. Once we have the CenturyLink position, we can move out to other companies. And a rough schedule of what the committee plans to do is for the next couple weeks, meet with vendors, then report to the board on our findings of the technical options for the community. Towards the end of January, we'll be developing RFPs into the middle of February. Then we will incorporate comments and release for proposals by March 5th of this year. Hopefully we will have received proposals a couple weeks later. We will do an analysis and report to the board, and then it'll take a while to convert to whichever service we decide. Hopefully the conversion will be complete by the first week of June.
Okay.
My question is why are we converting? I mean, I don't know whether CenturyLink has terminated their contract or anything. We have a 10-year contract. I'm missing a point there.
Well, this is why we're meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay.
To find out, because we really haven't gotten as far as I know, all we know is that they gave us notice that they'll be done sometime in mid-March. Was it?
Right. And that they were going to provide us an alternative they were working with.
And and they have a contract. I think we need to, see about them, honoring their contract with something that's amenable to us as a community.
The only thing that CenturyLink offers right now is dish. So we would have to do dishes on your house or a master dish, because I already spoke to them about my service, and that's what they're proposed.
I think we need to give the community a little more background on what the true impetus behind this is. If maybe you can explain your communications, what they have communicated to you, and why, I think it would be helpful, because it seems like we're getting bits and pieces here.
Well, I think there's lots of rumors, and I don't know. I'd like to know what the facts are.
Mm-hmm.
So let's be very open about it.
That's
So CenturyLink reached out to us, and I tried to put it in writing. They wouldn't put it in writing. called me. So I spoke with them. They said that effective June, July date, that they were no longer going to be having the prism, and that they wanted to have a company come out, survey the property. That's when we spoke last meeting about the large dish, and then created the ad hoc committee for the CenturyLink to start researching the contract, to start seeing what other options are out there. So that's why the ad hoc committee has been meeting in regards to the CenturyLink change that's going to happen. One way or the other.
Isn't it a little mysterious that something's not in writing and this is all word of mouth? I don't think that's how business is conducted, really, with a contract.
Right.
Did they convey that this was specific to Sandoval, or is this part of a nationwide termination?
There's over 52 plus properties that this is taking place at.
Have you encountered this in other properties that you manage, CenturyLink?
I just want to make sure this is not just...
They've been scaling back their level of
sense to
service
me.
regarding PRISM, the option that we have for the cable internet bundle, if you will.
I mean, I think it's an attorney issue myself.
And several of the residents have been, when they call in, told the same thing, that they were getting rid of it.
You know, then I think we need to get
They're
our
discontinuing
attorney involved
PRISM
and
is the
find out
rumor,
how they're
and
honoring or not honoring a contract.
Preliminary discussion was June, July.
Like MDU that we...
Yes.
I would certainly request in writing an update on the status of the contract, and if they anticipate at this point any termination, and of which, if they do, what date that termination date is. We can't speculate here. We have some obligations to our residents.
I believe we have a lawyer on the committee, so.
Okay. Well, that should probably precede us going out and getting all other types of bids.
Well, I think that's a little premature at this point. I mean, you know, if you want to vet what's available, but, you know, to engage these people as to what's going on, I think the first step is to find out, also evaluate the contract, find out what their obligations are to us.
The obligations and responsibilities, yeah.
Well, I can tell you, if they choose not to renew their license, it's quite clear in the contract that that's an out. There are 3 outs in the contract. I won't go into great detail right now, but I do think that there are other certain legal questions that we would need answered. But at the same time, I see that we need to hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and we don't want to be caught off guard in a situation we're negotiating a contract with a new company at a duress because we have to provide services.
I just don't see where we've been properly notified that that's going to happen.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like we have been properly notified.
No, I don't think we've been notified at all.
You're not going to get...
Yeah.
But I don't think Al and the committee are soliciting bids and that kind of stuff. I think they're just looking to see what's available out there so that if something comes up, we know who to talk to.
Yeah. And I don't think you guys should stop what you're doing, absolutely not, because obviously as board members we all received at least 1 or 2 solicitations from other fiber optic companies, so obviously they wouldn't be soliciting us if they didn't know something was going on.
The
so I think
committee
you're
isn't
doing
planning on doing anything before tomorrow when we talk to CenturyLink.
Right.
Good. And at that time, depending if you want me to make the request or if you to put it in writing from them and ask them, you know, are you going to put it in writing? Have you, you know, we haven't seen anything. If you want me to have that conversation, I'd be more than happy to. So just let me know.
After those meetings, I always like to memorialize the conversation in an email. Make sure you have a good understanding of the facts, send it to them, and have them approve the email as a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah,
That is a way to force their hand a bit in responding in writing.
You probably should review the MDU to see what notification they're required to give us. 30 days may be all they're required to give us, and that may be all they're planning on giving us.
And I think it's important to note, too, that they're, the rumor, speculation is it's the PRISM, which is the cable, the TV aspect, not the internet.
Video part, correct.
Right. So for homeowners that work from home and kids virtual learning, it's not.
I think there's some negotiation here to increase the 40 to, you know, a lot of communities, a lot of homeowners have 100, 200, and 300.
They've plussed up, right?
So,
and they unilaterally terminate
prism are we obligated to maintain with CenturyLink? That may be an ability for us to negotiate collectively for both services. It's a legal question that I would like to answer because it opens our ability to maybe get a better deal.
But I think that in the meantime also, didn't we receive, I believe it was a correspondence from Casey about CenturyLink and their deletion of some additional channels effective immediately, January 1? So I think at some point, and I don't want to put this on the ad hoc committee, but I think obviously we're getting a degradation of service, so I think there should be some remuneration to the residents. If you're losing channels come January 1, as Don said, maybe bump us up to 1 gig speed with the loss of channels right now.
And that's been happening. This whole thing is heading towards streaming.
Yes.
Yes,
And,
I agree.
You know, and if we're some way we can increase our internet speed, we're going to enhance our whole community because someday it's all going to be streamed. So, you know, I'm all in favor of trying to negotiate a 1 to 300 gigabyte streaming speed.
Absolutely, yeah, and because of the loss of service. And obviously the loss of service comes from CenturyLink not negotiating those contracts with the cable providers because they're getting out of the business, but that might be speculation.
Well, could be the cost of the royalty on those are
right. That's
cost prohibitive.
And this isn't the first time they have rolled back prior services. We had an app previously, which
right
no longer available.
They dropped channels in the last year or two as well.
Right.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
But I think that,
But we only
that
just
the
got the
channels
notification
provided is a
that they-
dynamic thing. I don't know that that's unusual.
Okay. Anything else, Al?
No.
All right, very good. Next, we have the tennis pickleball. Got them done. Is he here? Okay.
One of the issues with the tennis and pickleball courts is that the trees that are around the perimeter of the courts are invading the courts with their roots. They are you know, like they heave the pavers, they're heaving the blacktop. It's a dangerous situation. So that it needs to be the roots need to be cut. They need to be stopped from invading the courts, and also because the courts have some age on them now, like any asphalt, they get cracks in it, and the cracks need to be cut out and repaired. And the other problem with the pickleball tennis courts is that several years ago they were lined for both pickleball and tennis. This is annoying to both the tennis players and the pickleball players. We're hoping that we can get some courts that are purely tennis and some courts that are purely pickleball. When Craig gives his talk here, please remember that with a little bit of modification, you can fit 4 pickleball courts into 1 tennis court. That's one thing to remember. Go ahead, Craig.
You can take your...
this, mine. You have your hands free to use your papers, and it's on. Use papers and stuff. That's all right.
Okay, well, thank you. So I think the charge for our committee was to come up with a amiable agreement between the tennis players and the pickleball players on use of the courts. We had 4 tennis players and 4 pickleball players that met, and after a lengthy discussion, I think we did what our charge was. So I'm going to give you what we agreed on as far as what would work for both parties. I want to start out, this is what we have right now. We have 4 courts, both with tennis and pickleball lines. So all 4 courts that we have today can be used for either one. You'll notice I've got the north, you've noticed I've got the parking lot, and you notice I have the lake so that you can, and I don't have, right. So that's what we're using today. So you can see where we are. So what we propose is that we take court 4, okay? Court 4, and convert that to 4 pickleball courts. So court 4 on that sheet will look like this sheet.
Is court 4 is the one that's next to the shuffleboard now, correct?
Court 4 is to the east of the shuffleboard, closest to the parking lot.
Right, but it's the shuffleboard is between 4 and 3?
Yes.
Okay.
So that second drawing that you have there is to scale, and with some modification of the corners on the fence, we can put that in there. Okay? Then we agreed that on court 3, which is the one I'm going to give you here, is just for court 3, would be a flex court. That's going to be a court where we can play pickleball, 2 courts of pickleball, and 1 court of tennis. And or, yeah. So, yeah, right. Then that leaves 1 and 2 with just tennis. Okay? 1 and 2 with just tennis. And our group had total great consensus that at this point, this is the option that our group came up with.
For edification, how would you have the nets for the pickleball when you have the tennis net in the center?
Okay, good point. So on court, that we'd have the flex court would be a temporary net. A net that we can move out or bring in, or we can have a net that we put up and take down, depending on which way we wanted to go. There will be no extra holes or anything where we're going to put posts on that court. The tennis net, as it is, would stay just like it is for tennis. One of the other things that the tennis players don't like, there's a 2-inch difference between a pickleball net and a tennis net. So this way, that tennis net on the flex court would always stay at the height that it's supposed to be.
For tennis.
For tennis, right. So we wouldn't have to mess with it like now. If pickleball comes, they're going to lower it a couple inches. All right.
There were tennis players and pickleball players both part of the committee?
Yeah, 4 of each.
We selected the committee members to be both the same number in gender and also in pickleball players and tennis players. I think we had a very good representation that way.
Was there a formal vote taken or sort of a consensus?
It was. Now this is a little different. We had 2 people on Zoom. We had, what do we have, 6 people out under the tiki hut, and we discussed it, but we did not take a formal vote. Since then, we have had emails and all the, I should say 3 of the 4 people that are basically tennis players said that they wanted to go with this plan, to present this plan tonight. We had one that has not responded, and a third person we didn't get. She was at the meeting, but she didn't reply to the emails today. A lot of this has just been happening in the last 24 hours.
So,
And this is an improvement for tennis players based on the current conditions, because it's my understanding there's lines all over the tennis courts right now.
It's confusing.
So it is an improvement.
Correct.
So the things tennis player want are a tennis court without any extra lines. That's what they want to have, and would give up something.
The best situation.
Pickleball people want
the best situation would be to have four, the same amount of space for pickleball as you do for tennis, and have 16 pickleball courts and 4 huge tennis courts. But that's not going to happen. And I believe they also made an agreement that if at any time additional pickleball courts are constructed, that this flex court would be converted back to tennis, so that there would be 3 tennis courts, and that was agreed to.
Has there been any analysis in terms of our supply of courts compared to the demand? Or is these courts really taxed, or do they feel like they're sufficient to meet the needs of the community? Because frankly, I don't see it.
There would be, so for example, Sunday morning, there were 3 pickleball courts in use and 1 tennis court in use. Okay. The other night we had 3 pickleball courts in use, and once the season gets going, we'll probably use all 4 of them and have people waiting. Okay. The other thing that the tennis people brought up was, so let's say you have your 4 pickleball courts, but somebody wants more room on one of the other courts, and we have tennis people that want it. Well, that's pretty easy to me. They can go over on a pickleball court, and tennis could use that court if the other 2 courts were in use. So, I mean, we're all trying to get along to make it work with the best that we can do, rather than going to, 2 new pickleball courts, you're probably looking at $60,000 for just doing that.
With lighting and everything.
Right.
And this solution doesn't limit that in the future. It's still a viable option, but it's at least we have addressed the current issue with what we have.
Exactly. There is room probably at the south end, maybe for, there's no room for an additional tennis court, any other than our huge soccer field out here, which I would hate to put a tennis court there. But there is room to construct more pickleball courts, but you got to have the funds to do that. So what we're trying to do is everybody make a compromise and get by for a few years. And if a few years down the road we have enough interest in pickleball that we need some more courts, we can look at that. But
how did you determine the priority is to use on the flex court?
So now I
hate to see people with rackets out there going at it, because who's gonna put which nets up?
Okay, so on the calendar we have like a pickleball time. Let's say from like 5 to 8 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
AM or PM?
PM.
Okay.
Okay. That means if we're on the calendar, that's pickleball time. So if we would need those courts, we could use all 6 of them.
So Casey's going to adjudicate who's using that court.
Will we have our First Service app available for registrations and booking amenities? Will we be able to do that?
I mean, by the time, I think we're starting pretty quickly on the website, and if we have that option on there, then.
We have the website meeting Monday.
Right, yeah. So, you might be able to go on the app or on the website and be able to register for a certain time to be able to play on that flex court, so nobody else would be there.
And then I think tennis also has the same times that they play tennis on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and if their times they needed all 3 courts, they'd have all 3 courts.
So that court is determined first come, first served?
Not necessarily.
On the calendar.
Right, on the
calendar.
Other than the times on the calendar.
Yes.
First come, first served.
Well, it's first come, first served to get on the calendar, isn't
Well, these are standing leagues,
Well,
right?
we just play. It's anybody.
But it gets on the calendar as a standing league, or whoever shows up plays.
We want 5 to 8 on the flex court.
Okay, we'll buy that. Yeah.
Okay, but you also said you didn't take a formal vote.
No, we did not make a motion and take a formal vote. When
before we vote on anything, can we see those emails responses that you got where everybody but one was in favor of that?
Oh yeah, do you have them?
I got them from the tennis people.
So you don't know if the pickleball people concur with it or not?
They concur with this.
But you don't have emails from them saying they concur, right?
We concurred at the meeting.
I think the objections, if anything, would come from the tennis players. And it sounds like we got 3 out of 4.
That was the only. When we left the meeting, the consensus of 8 people was to do this.
If you didn't take a vote, how did you have consensus?
We asked everybody. Are you in agreement?
So that is a vote then.
Okay, but we didn't raise our hand and say it's 8-0.
Okay.
Okay, we didn't do that. But we asked the people on Zoom, are you all right with this? Are you good with this? When we left, it was 8-0.
Okay.
Yesterday, we had a few things that came up, and the tennis people were like, well, what about this? Maybe we should readdress this. Today, and I think one of them's back on board with us, Al, other than the one that didn't respond.
Well, what are the names of those 3?
You heard from Lynn?
No, Jonathan.
Jonathan, our attorney
I didn't see a response from Lynn Alkins.
Right, one, yeah.
Right.
So Jonathan from Morgan and Morgan, our attorney, is in favor of this, correct?
Yeah, and I can get you his. I think I can get his.
Now, and Tamara's in favor of this. If the other guy's not, if there's one guy that's not.
Was there? Good.
Yes.
Tamara did send you an email.
Tamara has an email in there to go with what we proposed at the meeting.
Okay.
I haven't heard from Lynn Elkins yet.
Okay. So the other 3 tennis players have voted in favor of doing this.
Another person that did not show up for the committee meeting, so he was not part of the 8.
So there's 9, but you only had 8 there?
Yeah.
Okay. And Al doesn't get a vote because he's a liaison, and
Right.
Craig doesn't get a vote because he's chair unless there's a tie and he has to break the tie, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you had 7 votes, and you've got 6 documented that were in favor of this plan.
I will emphasize that we've been trying to get this done now for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So I'd really like to get this done tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any issue with losing the tennis ball courts, like reduction in amenity or anything like that from a HOA standpoint of when I came to this community, there were 4 tennis courts, and now there's only 2.5?
That was looked, if my memory serves me correctly, that was looked into by Rob Caves. And he said, we're not getting rid of an amenity, we're
transitioning it,
enhancing it.
Okay.
It's kind of like the playground.
Mm-hmm.
We had an old wooden boat there in a sand play lot, and now we have a different, maybe somebody, when I moved here, there was an old wooden rusty
we have
boat.
swings now. We didn't have swings before. We have multiple different
But I didn't know from the tennis standpoint where there were 4 courts and now we're 2.5.
I think if the courts were being used, 4 courts, all the time, I think there's obviously you can't say there's never been 4 tennis courts even used, but from the utilization that we're having now, I think this would work.
Oh, I think it would. I'm wondering from a community-wide 2/3 vote, whatever it is. I mean, we couldn't take a fountain out because it was an amenity, and it was, I didn't know if this is something that's going to come back that it needs to be a community vote.
We put lights on it, and it's a different fountain than it was before. And so that's what we're doing with this.
We're enhancing.
You would be correct if we would take
all of them out. Okay.
That wouldn't be right to do.
Yeah. No, as long as Caves weighed in on it, I'm good.
If we need to check back with Caves again, we can.
Well, once you have an legal opinion, you have one.
Well, let me get clear in my head. You got 8, 4 tennis, 4 pickleball, and Craig is a pickleball, one of the 4 pickleballs. So you have 7 voting members, 4 of which are tennis and 3 of which are pickleball players. And ball players were in favor of this. And you've had two tennis players say they were in favor. 1 tennis player has not responded, and 1 tennis player did not. Who was the one that didn't come to the meeting? Was that tennis or pickleball player?
Tennis.
Tennis. So there were 3 of the 4 tennis players at the meeting.
There were 4 of 5.
One that didn't show up, I don't know that he's a tennis player. He said he wanted to be on the committee to...
But you don't know what his preference would be then?
Correct.
Okay.
I've never spoken with him.
Okay, so, but we know 3 of the 7 are tennis players. Tamara, Jonathan.
Tamara approved it. Jonathan Huffman.
He's our attorney, right?
He's our attorney,
Okay.
correct. And Barbara Safranek.
Okay. But all 3 of those have approved?
We're in favor.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, if they've all 3 approved it, I don't have a big issue with it.
All right, so Al, do you want to make a motion? Or,
Well,
okay, sorry, you're not done.
Do we
So-
want to discuss the
We're gonna discuss the money?
financial aspect,
Yeah, I was
or we
gonna
want to
say.
approve it first?
well, that's what I was hoping, that you guys would just vote and say we could do this, and you wouldn't ask about the money.
Well,
No, we would vote, and then we would say what's
the
it gonna
financial
cost us.
aspect really is just
didn't
coming
make
out of
the motion
reserves
quick
because it was
enough,
to be
did I?
Right.
recovered.
But it's the reserve funding to resurface, right?
Yeah.
Because I brought the reserve sheet, if you'd just like that to be on the record. There is available currently, 2019, $27,690.
Wait, say it again, please. How much?
$27,690.
And of course, we don't have bids yet, but I would say if we approve this, we approve it up to a maximum of that.
Does that,
Well, we've got to know what's realistic. It's not going to be happen for 27,000.
It's not what?
It's not going to happen for 27,000.
Well, then where are we going to pay for the rest of it?
Well, in 2025, there's $31,367.
Yeah, but we're not talking about waiting until 2025, are we?
No.
we could readjust the reserve sheet because that's planned out for intervals in the life of the resurfacing. But I do have a question. Does this include the basketball courts? Or is
Yes.
This does include
Yes.
the basketball courts.
And it included the color being blue.
Does the reserve, is it broken down?
No,
or-
it's tennis and basketball courts. And the categories that are on the list here is tennis and basketball courts color code.
Okay.
Then there's tennis and basketball court fences, and then there's tennis and basketball courts lights and fixtures.
Okay.
And
And
you're not
then there's another one. There's tennis and basketball courts surface replacement, of which surface replacement is not to be done for a number of years, and it's $204,000.
And you're not talking about putting pickleball courts on the basketball court?
No. But
Okay.
in terms of the surface replacement, I'm sure we're going to be doing some repairs to the actual surface for cracking, and I know around the basketball.
Well, I think if we do this, we would be fixing the cracks, taking care of the root problem that's caused some of the cracks. One of the problems is that the fences are 45-degree corners. They have to be on the court that are made for the pickleball to 90. So there's going to be some alteration of fencing. All those things are adding to what the cost of this project is going to be. But then once that is all done, you're going to have something that I think will be sustainable, other than just the coating of the courts, on a periodic basis when it's needed.
Has there been any discussion in terms of or review of maintenance of maybe the nets or the poles, or adding some sort of permanent fixture in place where you can secure the pickleball nets on the transition court, anything along those?
I think they discussed, didn't you discuss the putting a pole in, and the tennis players kind of thought that might be dangerous?
Well, some sort of something in the court that would allow you to secure it in the concrete and maybe cap it.
Oh, they don't want any
They don't
holes
want
or
anything like
caps.
that.
They don't want that.
They don't want that.
Well-
We're fine with a
Yeah.
portable
Okay, just
net.
seeing if it was discussed.
Also,
Okay.
it'd be a portable net for the pickleball on the flex
yes.
court?
Yeah.
Where are you going to put the pickleball net when they're playing tennis?
So we have 20 feet. If you look on there, we have 20 feet towards the lake.
So you
Space.
take them outside?
So we can either put it along the fence, or we can go, if you put the posts that you put together, that bag is no bigger than this, and you take them all apart, they're pipes. Put them together, you put them in a bag like this. We can either take them to somebody's house and bring them back, or we can buy a box and store them out there. There's plenty of room to do that, and that'd be minimal.
There's room under that canopy to store things,
Right.
sure.
Maybe we can get some sort of storage
A lockbox?
or something
Right.
along those lines.
I think
Keep
something
it
that's
clean.
lockable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
There's-
let's just.
There is a box at the Butterfly Garden that's not being used for the Butterfly Garden anymore. You could probably move that up.
That'd work perfect.
Yeah, would be.
That's a good point, Bill.
So let me just, last year we got bids, okay? So I can be pretty close of what this is going to cost. And
Last year, 2020.
2019.
Oh, okay, a year and a half.
Okay.
2 years ago. This is
Yeah,
2021.
But, okay, 29, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry.
So based on those bids, I think you're looking at $60,000.
Ooh.
So I think we just well throw it out there tonight because that's close. I called the two of the three companies that bid it in 19, and one of them told me to add 10%. The root barrier is $11,000. The basketball court is about $6,000. So that's.
Well, the root barrier alone isn't just resurfacing. That
No,
is
I
part
mean
of
the root barrier.
integrity.
I don't really think it's fair to have that as a item for taking care of the tennis. I think that's something that, we've run into a snag here. It's an unexpected
Well, it's part
issue,
of
but there's no need to resurface the court if you don't resolve the root problem because
Right.
you're wasting your money.
Well, let me just quickly ask you a question. What is the root barrier stopping the roots from? Do we know where the source is coming from? The question I have with that is because I heard you mention it, Al. Landscape is well aware of the silver buttonwoods that are around the courts that are popping the surface, and that's part of my last meeting with Allison. Was that as part of landscape is to remove those buttonwoods. Unfortunately, I don't believe we can repurpose them because they're so old, but landscape is aware of the problem they're causing, and they will be removed. I believe that's going to be in 2021's budget. So I think we need to get together probably with you or whomever. Are you the chair to who's the chair to this committee? Liaison.
I'm the liaison.
So maybe we'll just meet with Allison and make sure that that's going to come out so it's not part of your budget for your $60,000. And if we do remove those, you might not need that root barrier because everything's going to be away from the perimeter of your courts.
I think there's some of those are an issue, but I think some of the palms are an issue too on the ends, which would probably. I think
Some cabbage palms, I believe.
Yeah, well, cabbage palms, we can also, look into root pruning those instead of a root barrier. And root pruning is going to last us about 3 to 5 years because we're looking at doing it in the islands for the palms. So that might be something, again, to stave off that $11,000. That's a good portion of your budget.
Yeah, oh, it is. That's a big number.
No, it's a big number.
And then moving the fence, and the other added expense that's not in the normal is squaring the corners to 90 and adding that extra court because it requires the base and the coating in that little corner area. Well, there's the base asphalt or whatever material they use, and then there's a coating that goes on top. That's the color. You've got a corner.
Aren't you just taking the fence? There's pavement out there already. Aren't you just squaring
no,
it out?
there isn't pavement.
Oh, okay.
In the middle, there's pavement. The fence went in, but there is pavement.
Okay.
But on the ends, there's nothing.
Okay.
Really?
The main point here is that this isn't just resurfacing,
There's
and
more
we're not
to it.
restricted to just the one line item. I think it's actually the integrity
of the courts themselves.
I mean, I have
do think
another
it's a reserve item.
suggestion is that, we utilize reserve money, and then, there is still some telecommunications fund money that is not committed, that a portion of that could be possibly help to defer the upgrade of this project, if that became an issue.
Well, if we were going to vote to use that source of funds, I would say we don't proceed with this until after the clubhouse is complete and we know what money's left, not guess what monies might be left.
Well, my point is that a significant portion of this is to the restoration of the pavement and the integrity of the pavement itself, not just a resurfacing. Mm-hmm. And there are dollars available in our reserve account for the actual structure, the pavement itself, just not the surface. So I don't think that we're limited to just the resurfacing
Well,
fund.
I know, to give you an example, is the pool. We used an upgraded pool surface when we redid the pool, because that was going to last us, 10 years longer than what the original was and what the replacement cost was. But that, going forward, will stretch out when that money's necessary later.
Right.
So, I mean, another issue, just a sideline, are the pool heaters. Back when Sean Wilson was here, he got a bid for geothermal pool heaters and using water from the lake. Well, I think recently we've had pool heater issues, and that's now something not for discussion today, but I just want to put it in your thought process.
So that's what we came up with. That's kind of where we are. And I guess we're looking for your guidance on how we proceed.
I'd just like to say thank you to you and your group.
Yes, thank you.
For stepping up and volunteering, because that's what this community is about. And when you sit down as lay people who are very, very interested in, your sport, it shows you did your homework. We thank you for that, and hopefully we'll be able to move this forward so you'll have improved amenities.
Well, the lesson we learned is what you go through every day. So we appreciate what you do, too.
And I think there was a person in Abstentia that did a lot of work on this project, and I would like to acknowledge Jack Laramie and all the work that he did in getting the bids and things, and Jack passed away a year ago. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's true.
So.
Well, I'd like to see us vote on this, frankly.
You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the changing of the tennis courts to represent 2 full-time tennis courts, 1 transition court, and the establishment of 4 pickleball courts. And that we authorize funding up to $60,000 out of the reserve account. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
If the bid comes in higher than 60, the project fails, or?
I think that we just raise it we can make an emergency meeting and we can evaluate the costs and see if it's still a worthwhile project. But unless you're suggesting increase the cost, I like to have a realistic cap, frankly. It helps us control costs.
Well, I like the cap too. It's just
Greg, you want to mention something?
Uh-oh.
Well, I'm trying to be at the top rather than to come in here and tell you that we can do this for $40,000, okay?
Fair enough.
Right. And the landscaping options now, too, will...
Right, maybe we'll change that.
help you,
So
right?
I'm not skimming to give you a low ball number at all.
Get
If
us a little bit
anywhere,
pregnant.
I feel in my mind I'm pretty close based on what we had in 19.
Under promise, over deliver.
We like it.
My only concern with Ron's, what you're saying is that Don brought up using the telecommunications fund. If that's the source we're going to tap, then I think we don't do it until after the clubhouse is complete.
His motion
and we
doesn't
know
say
exactly what's there.
Yeah, I honestly feel that we're not just doing a resurface, we're improving the integrity of the courts. It's also going to extend the life of the courts.
I agree,
Therefore, it's a
but
justifiable basis for
I
a
don't
bar.
favor tapping the telecommunications fund to do it. until the clubhouse is complete.
But the motion didn't address that. So
Okay.
It didn't address the source.
I'm just saying that's my concern.
We didn't put in the motion.
If it comes back at 75, then I'll support you tonight, but if it comes back at 75, I will not support it. So
If it comes back at 75, we'll go back to the committee and come up with another solution.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
So your 60 is coming out of the 2019 and the 2025 projection.
Yep.
No, it would be the
2019 and the court replacement reserve items, I believe. Which
That
we
was
have
in
200
2025, though, wasn't it?
No, we have.
What year is that?
It's a long time, but
It's over the. What we'd be doing is extending the life of the courts, and we're doing a readjustment for that line.
Oh, I see.
What line is that?
If you solve the problem of the roofs and you
Oh, I have it here.
fix the corners,
think it's
then you're going to get a
24
lot of
I
mileage.
have it here.
And if you
Forgot I get it.
continually address the corners, because that's the only place
Yeah,
where the court's effective.
but Ron's saying we've got a replacement line in the reserves in addition to the.
We do.
We do.
So
Of
that's what I'm
200,000.
asking. What line is that replacement? And what year is it calling?
2043.
2043.
Yeah, 2043.
So you're 22 years away from being supposed to.
That's for a complete replacement.
Right.
What we're doing, and similar to our analysis we
On
looked
the paving.
of the roads, we're currently analyzing whether we do a sealant, and which would extend the life of the roads. And if we could extend the life of the roads long enough, then it would pay for the sealing. We don't have the answer to that question yet, but by fixing certain areas of the integrity of the pavement, we are extending the life of the pavement, and we're doing it for only a small portion of the allocated amount under the bar.
Plus, we'll be
Okay.
contributing to that 2043 fund between now and then, so that money is also going to be growing because
Exactly.
everything goes into the.
No, because that's not there yet, and that the contributions between now and 2043 is when it would be put into there. So you can't. But Casey and First Service, can we expend monies that the reserve study said should be expended in 2043 for a project now? Can we move dollars? Okay, so we can legitimately move money out of 2043 back to 2021 to do this project.
It's a simple adjustment.
Yeah.
Now towards that, so you really.
But you would lower the 2043 number.
Really with any, but really with any reserve line item, I mean, that's an educated guess, it's a projection.
Yeah.
You know, just like your roads, you know, if they're projected to do a new top coat, a mill and overlay in 20 years, well, they fail at 15, you're doing it 15 anyways.
Okay.
You know, but with this, you were talking about, doing repairs now, in order to extend the life of them. So then that is whenever, you go back and you relook at this and go, hey, we might actually push a full replacement of them out even further because we won't need to with the repairs we're doing now.
But our reserve funds are not statutorily dedicated, correct, in an HOA, so we can.
We can, but even if they were statutory, I think even taking the most conservative route, we can still proceed in this manner.
I would agree.
Well, my concern is what Scott said earlier about people threatening to sue us and taking us to task on
Good luck.
Facebook. I'm just asking, is this a legitimate action that we can take comfortably? And they said yes, it is. So that's what I was looking for.
Okay, so Ron made the motion and Al seconded it. Bill had the discussion point. Is there further discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Restate the motion to make sure.
Restate the motion.
To make sure it's.
So Ron's motion was that there would be 2 tennis courts, 1 flex court, and 4 pickleball courts. And not to exceed 60,000.
That's what I was looking for. Okay.
Okay. From reserves. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. So to get the proposals in, does this go back to the amenities committee?
I would say, because they have recently started on that and worked in that, I think they have a lot of knowledge that they can put into that, working to get those proposals. I think there's already some in place.
You're next.
And then I'd like to ask another question is, when would you like to get started on this?
I would like, You're asking me, because personally, I'd like to see all our amenities upgraded and.
So when the clubhouse is done, this is done as well.
Exactly
Yeah.
right.
That was what I wanted to see if you'd say that. So
Expedition.
we're upgrading the whole area here.
Exactly right.
So,
I'll give you.
okay, okay.
So your motion passed.
All right. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
But
next on the agenda.
at this point, we don't know how long it'll take to do it or anything, so.
I just want to stay there for the rest and I take my place.
It's like everything else, get started on it.
So the motion passed. Thank you, Craig.
Happen when it
Next on the agenda, we have our property management transition efforts to be discussed, and I would ask that you identify yourselves for the group, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Good evening, board. Good evening, everybody joining us. Thanks again for having us. We're thrilled to be here. My name's Travis Brandt. I am Director of Client Relations with First Service. Do all kinds of things to support our communities, but one of those is helping with the transition of new communities onto our local office here.
My name is Derek Davenport. I'm a regional director with First Service Residential. I assist in overseeing is support for many of our. But anyways, I assist in many of the communities here in Southwest Florida, and I'm happy to be here and with Sandoval and supporting the team here at Sandoval.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Steve Harshman, Vice President with Southwest Florida. I'm excited to be here. I want to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to come here and work with the board and the community. Casey here has a fantastic team, and we're excited to work with them, so very excited. And like Travis said, we're here to help support the team and the community and look forward to tackling many objectives, which sounds like there's quite a few things going on. So very excited to be here, and I just want to thank the board for letting us have this opportunity. So thank you.
So as I mentioned, overseeing the transition, especially with a large, complex community like Sandoval, there's a lot that can go into that. I did want to provide an update here tonight, and so just give the board and the homeowners, bring them up to speed on everything happening. So as Kathy mentioned, we did enter this with kind of a tight timeline. We understood that the holidays were right there before our January 1st start date. So first of all, we really just want to thank everybody for their patience in working with us through this transition. Pope was able to help us with many of the back office tasks that were needed. And we were straightforward with the board that our first few priorities, one was onboarding Casey and her team. We're excited that they've now joined our team. We're excited to support them and help them grow and help provide a better service to the community here at Sandoval. But the other really had to do about the financial management of the community, making sure that a business continued as usual and that we didn't miss any steps. So there were minor delays in setting up the bank accounts and getting our payable systems up and running because of those holidays. I'm happy to report that those things are set up. We are good to go, and owners can start making those first quarter payments with us. I believe communication went out yesterday through email that would provide some of that instruction on how owners can make those payments, but I did want to quickly review them here tonight just so everybody was on the same page. We really see three main options that we offer for owners to make those payments. And so the first, what we feel is one of the easiest, is a payment processing system. It is a third party. It's called ClickPay, and that offers owners a number of options in how they will make those payments. There are direct debit, where you can just link your checking account. Those payments can be pulled automatically with parameters that you set up. There are options to pay by debit card or pay by check if you choose. And then you can also pay by credit card. There will be a small fee with that, like most payment processors. All of the other options available would be free. And so ClickPay is a great way to set those up. You can set that up directly with your banking institution. And so if you go to your bank, on the Connect, once you register, you'll receive an account number. And so you use the account number, you use the address that was provided in that communication, and your bank can send those payments automatically for you. And then finally, you can always just write a check. You can put that account number on there, and you can mail the check to the address that was provided. Now, the letter that went out through email was a generic letter. All of the owners in Sandoval will be getting a welcome letter and a statement for them in the mail within the next few days. Those statements are on the way. The two main pieces of information, as I mentioned, one is the homeowner account number, and the second would be the address to mail those payments. The other option, if you'd like that information now, you can go ahead and register for our resident portal. We call that Connect, and that information would be available on each homeowner's portal page. You'll find that information in the instructions there. I did want to share just a little bit about that portal. So it is set up. We're still in the process of populating and filling out the framework of that portal. Once it's set up, you'll be able to see, as Bill mentioned, your specific owner balances. We still have to reconcile payments with Pope, but we're looking forward to that and offering that in real time for all of the owners. You can look at community documents. You can see different events that are happening. You can see specific frequently asked questions for Sandoval. And all of that is still being filled out, but we would encourage homeowners and residents to go and register for that portal. We know that many already have, and that's fantastic. Anybody that's having trouble, and this again was mentioned in that communication and will be reiterated in the welcome letter, we do maintain a customer care center for all of the homeowners that they can just reach out and call. We, at this point right now, we've received over 120 calls into that customer care center, so hopefully that's helping the property team not be inundated throughout the day, but that's also a resource for the community. If it's when the office is closed, if it's on the weekends and they need information, that team is made up of First Service associates, and so they have access to the same information that our teams, the property team, and the board are using to manage the community. And so the goal there is that they can help at least answer 80% of those questions on the very first call and not require any additional follow-up from the property team. It sounds like so far out of those 120 calls, we've had about 10 that have needed additional assistance. And so we're seeing that system seems to be working. If you are one of those 10, we appreciate your patience. We're working to resolve those individually. And so we'll continue as we look to get everybody set up. In addition to that resident portal, I did just want to provide some updates on the technology side of things. So we're working with the board and with the communication committee to set up what we call a lifestyle website for Sandoval. We think the current website is great. I think what our goal would be to just add some functionality there that's going to benefit the operation of the community. It's going to benefit the residents in taking part in a lot of the activities that they have planned. And so there will be more information on that to come. We're shooting for a mid to late February rollout. And we'll look forward to bringing more details of that website as that continues to be developed. But some exciting things there. We also understand that the community has a pretty in-depth social media presence, and that's a great way that they communicate. And so we'll look to integrate that into that website also, so there's easy access between the two, and so that any information that we want to share, we're able to get that out to the community quickly. Finally, I did just want to bring attention to the fact that the property team here at the office does have new email addresses. Those have been distributed, but just in case somebody did not get them, they're very simple. It's first.lastname@fsresidential.com. Those will continue to be communicated just to make sure that if you need assistance, that you're able to easily reach somebody. And so we will continue to communicate different updates. There's plenty of other things going on. I know that we're meeting almost daily with different committees and different board members on different transition activities. We're looking forward to continuing to update the board and the community at future board meetings as those are rolled out. And as I mentioned, we will have quite a bit of information that will continue to come out, and we look forward to sharing a little bit more about how we're supporting and helping Sandoval be even better. So thank you for having us here tonight.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for the team? Casey, did you want to add anything? Good. Okay, super. Thank you. Thank you again. All right, next on the agenda, street paving, old business. Ron, anything? Or Casey?
I spoke with Casey recently. It's my understanding we're on track. They're still a little behind due to COVID, but do we have a new date of the paving repairs?
We found a way to save and go with a company that's been very responsive. They're just condensing the proposal, and I should have it back I thought I was going to get it back today, but we should have it any day now. And they want to start ASAP.
Okay.
So
Excellent.
I would say January still is on target potentially for start date.
Excellent.
Super. Okay, great. Anything else? Nope. Okay, great. Thank you. And then we have assisted living. Any update there? This assisted living facility, our neighbor.
I know they've reached out to us. Just to give you a little bit of an update, back in June, we had the representatives for the proposed assisted living facility here. They gave us a summary of what they wanted to do in terms of building an assisted living project off of Hayden Lane. They asked us to make certain concessions in the term of a waiver. Those concessions were allowing them to increase the height of the facility to 3 stories, increase the square footage, and changing it, the restriction from commercial only to residential. In exchange, they agreed to help us pay for maintenance of Hayden Lane, restrict access to Hayden Lane to only emergency vehicles, maintain a large row of mature trees along the barrier of Hayden Lane, and they also agreed on dark sky initiative. At that meeting, the board specifically disclosed that no board member had a property interest or any sort of financial interest in the property. Every board member made this statement and conveyed that there was no conflict of interest in us taking a vote, just to reassure certain residents that our priorities weren't elsewhere. The board took a vote at that meeting and unanimously agreed that we would go ahead and proceed with signing the waiver in exchange for those concessions. We then received the waiver, which did not reflect our agreement. It was a full release with no statement of any of their concessions, and the waiver wasn't limited to those 3 areas. It was basically a full release. Obviously, due to the breadth, we were not signing that. We did get a more recent waiver that was much more reflective of our agreement. However, there was also a request for us to take over deed restriction enforcement for that specific lot. That is obviously an additional request in addition to the waiver. There are certain liabilities associated with that undertaking and costs, which I think each board member needs to make sure they understand. There has been some initial communication with our council on this, but at the end of the day, each board member is going to have to take a position on that new request, and that's where I stand with it right now.
So is that additional request, would that be in one vote, or would you vote and that would be a separate item?
It would have to be a separate item,
yeah,
and we obviously are not proceeding without board guidance on this issue.
No.
I certainly would not agree to anything outside of what the board collectively voted on.
I think the original agreement should, we should proceed with that, but I don't know whether we want to talk about the other.
Okay.
Right.
That's my 2 cents.
Well, it's more of an update. I don't even think we need to take a formal position at this point, but that is the update because they have reached out. And I want everyone, including the community, to understand where we're at with that.
Are they waiting on us for a response?
I'm not entirely clear on their progress. They have reached out to ask us where we stand with the waiver itself. It's my understanding we responded that this is an additional request, and then I would update the board. And that's basically where we stand with it. And if I have any, I can forward some communications we've had with Mr. Caves on this issue, and if it comes up again or they want to come and communicate with us again, we'll be in a position to make a further decision on it. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, okay?
Very good. All right. Next on the agenda, we have old business, the design review guidelines. We recently, the Architectural Review Committee recently provided clarification and redrafted some of the guidelines that were approved by the board in the fall of 2020. And the ARC came in last week with 2 additional topics they want to address, and they provided some language. The first is on page 17 of the guidelines in the section addressing approved and prohibited landscape materials. So the current version cites no stone, gravel, colored mulch, or paving material shall be used as or substituted for lawns unless approved by the Design Review Committee. So ARC sees the need to address lawns because these stones are being used as mulch beds. Some of them are on the lawns. There were some recent scenarios, situations where the pea stones were put down as in lieu of landscaping with pools. And of course, the interpretation of this was that stones were not allowed. So for the clarity's sake, the ARC has offered the following clarification to further address stones and gravel. The proposed change now reads, no stone, gravel, colored mulch, or paving material shall be used as or substituted for lawns and or, and this is the addition, landscaping material unless approved by the Design Review Committee. So with the landscaping material, that would encompass, they're saying would encompass more than just the lawns, because...
Yeah. I have some concerns with this, frankly.
Okay.
It's my understanding that using rock for certain areas of flower beds is significantly more expensive, and in some cases much more, I guess it's subjective, but tasteful than pine straw or some type of mulch that degrades. I would also mention that I could point to probably 30 to 40 homes right now that utilize rock as part of their flower beds.
Right.
The plain reading of this basically says you can't have rock lawns. It doesn't say anything about you not utilizing decorative rock for flower beds or around trees. You would still have to maintain an edge line. There would still be the requirements to make sure that there was a demarcation between lawns and flower beds. But this seems to be a pretty large change from where we were, and even more restrictions on our residents. I don't know why we would want to restrict our residents from using something like decorative rock to have them downgrade to mulch. That's more of a subjective opinion. So based on that alone, I would be voting against it. But more importantly, what are we going to do with the substantial number of residents that have complied with our restrictions and utilize rock and flower bed in their flower beds? What are we going to do with them? Are they grandfathered in? Are we going to go and take an inventory of every single home? Or are we going to require them now to pay to get ARC approval on the basis that it was previously there prior to this new restriction? I need some clarity on that issue.
Right. Well, there was a recent situation where a house was being sold, right? I'm at liberty to say this, right? But it was grandfathered in.
It was not.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not totally clear, and I think that clarification needs to be made.
One way or the other.
One way or the other.
So
that way, when someone is selling their home, and one saying that they're not in compliance, and I think there needs definitely clarification.
I think that, honestly, I don't know if you can all read this, but no stone, gravel, colored mulch,
they have copies,
or paving materials shall be used as or substituted for lawns. That's pretty clear to me. I don't see any ambiguity or vagueness here. I think it says that you cannot use stone, gravel, colored mulch, or paving materials as your yard.
And I think the clarification that's needed from the Architecture Review Committee is that their understanding has been that stones were not allowed in mulch beds or anywhere, and that it was talked to approve having stones. So the stance has been historically with the Architecture Review Committee that they have denied
stones
many applications.
not allowed.
On what basis, though? On the basis of this provision?
Their interpretation of this.
No stone in the lawn
But
at all.
The plain reading is quite clear.
And that's the problem.
And that's what they need to address.
In the last meeting is you can't have ambiguity where it's going to be upon the approval of, because 2615 might be approved and 2622 might not be. That's where it needs to be clear and concise. And as a landscaper, I can tell you I am all in favor of having a portion thereof of bed material being stone. I think it adds texture. I think it adds, it lessens the runoff of mulch. But then again, if we do allow stones, I think we need to have language in there that is just like mulch, what type, because obviously, there's a million types out there, and I personally don't like the white marble, and I think that looks terrible, as the red mulch does. So I think if we go with and lava rock floats away. So if we do a 1 to 3 inch river rock that's blah, 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 we can come up with language for that. I would be all in favor of leaving the language that we can't have it as lawns, because I think it's very clear, and allowing a certain type of stone to be allowed, but as a percentage of that bed. So where someone can't do their whole house in stone, I still believe there needs to be some sort of mulch component to our landscaping, because in our docs it does say that Sandoval should be Florida friendly, xeriscaping, all of those things. So I think the combination thereof would lend itself to
so you'd restrict it then to surrounding trees or flower beds or shrubs.
I think this is coming to us because back to Sean Wilson and the ARC 4 or 5 years ago, the interpretation was that rocks were not allowed in landscaping.
Right. They didn't enforce it.
The ARC,
well,
no,
yes,
the ARC has enforced it to people who applied. The people who put the rocks in didn't apply and just did it and said, what are you going to do about it?
Nothing.
So what the ARC is asking is for this board to give them guidance. Should it be allowed or should it not be allowed? That's what this is.
Well, Scott's recommendation myself.
Well,
and I would propose, if we're just talking about this, but if I was to come up with a motion, I would say that it would be allowed to have a no more than 50% of existing bed coverage to be allowed, the resident to be allowed to use a stone material to be consistent with a 3/4 inch to 3 inch stone of, and I believe down here you guys don't call it river rock. I forgot what you call it.
Pea gravel.
Well, pea gravel won't come that big, but 3/4 inch to 3 inch, and I'm going to say river rock.
Yeah, there's
stone.
specific nomenclature, at least
Right.
at Lowe's and Home Depot.
Right.
Well, I think what the ARC is looking for is for you to make that motion exactly, this board to vote on it, and Casey to get it posted to the website so the community knows that's the rule. So
going forward,
if that's the board's pleasure, you need to make that motion so we can tell ARC how to proceed.
Yeah, I would think I'd be comfortable in that type of language, 3/4 inch to 3 inch river rock, comprising of no more than 50% of existing bed coverage.
And the remainder is to be mulch.
Remainder is to be mulch that's compliant with our document.
And color needs to be approved. We need to.
Yeah, river rock is usually that neutral color. It's anywhere from a light tan to.
The more specific, the better. I can tell
yeah.
you for the guidelines. All right, so.
And from the color of mulch, isn't there certain mulch colors too?
Yes.
yeah, be careful.
I think we just say colored mulch.
Lots of nice rocks. They're not river rocks, but they're nice.
So what happens
they're
with
good.
anybody that has existing rock that doesn't meet that criteria?
Because they complied with our guidelines. Because as it's written,
It would be enforced going forward.
Yeah, I would agree, because if somebody took us to task on that, they'd say, like, listen, this is just a bed, it's not lawn, and there's nothing that says how much I can or can't have. But going forward, I think that.
So when you say 50% coverage of bed coverage, the bed coverage being where the shrubs and the trees are, correct?
Anything that's existing. I mean, somebody can't come out and because I believe it's also in our docs, you can't take your whole lawn and say, hey, I'm making it into one big bed now, get rid of all your turf grass and rock your lawn.
could they say if they have a tree and they wanted to make a small bed around the tree, would they be required to make it a percentage of rock and a percentage of mulch, or could they do all rock in that flower bed?
I would say when I look at the 50%, that would be an aggregate of. So let's just say we have 200 square feet of bed.
Okay. The tree would be all rock.
The tree would.
Okay.
Yeah, it
That's
wouldn't be
what was-
50% of that tree area. It would be 50% of the aggregate amount of bed space.
Scott.
Do we have a maximum bed size?
No, I'm going by what the bed size was created, as the as-built for the house.
And I think
who knows that?
Yeah, but now they're doing a pool and extended lanai, and landscaping is required now, so their bed space or bed coverage has increased.
Could be new bed
up.
space.
And I think what we're trying to avoid here is the technicality argument. Oh,
Yeah.
it's not a yard, it's a bed. And I think by adding a percentage would be helpful.
Well, the ARC is looking for direction as to how to interpret this. So you just need to tell them who's going to determine what's 50%.
It's fair. Enforcement is obviously the most important aspect.
Before enforcement will get involved. Is there are they going to have a landscape contractor who will do that calculation for them?
Yeah, because they'll have to have a landscape
Well, yeah, as per everything that needed to be done had to be by a contractor.
It has to be done by a contractor.
Then
So
I
they
think you
can't
should
just
add that
go
to
to
your
Lowe's
motion.
and buy a couple bags of rock and dump it around a tree? We're going to have
I think that was the argument conversation that Al had, because you were talking about my annuals that I put out front. Do we need, do I need a landscape architect to approve them? I would think that if you have, that's why I said existing bed. So if you have an existing bed area, you're not expanding anything except for a pool enclosure, because that has to go before design review. But what is existing in your yard, if you say I want to do rock in this area, again, we live in a gated community. Ask before you do. If you don't know that living in a gated community, you need to look at your docks. That's why we have docks. So if you're going to do it, you need to find out if that is allowed and how the process is. So I think 50% of an aggregate amount is more than fair. And if anybody needs a lesson on how to move a tape measure back and forth and multiply two things, I'll be more than happy to.
We've had residents build a pool without getting approval, so putting down rocks is definitely not going to be an issue. So I think that's what ARC is asking for. Give them direction as to what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in an application.
Right. They come into they ask for an application. We want to put rocks down. Where can we say 50% of the mulch beds or of the plant beds can be
50% of the existing.
I'd say no more than 50%.
Not to exceed,
right.
yes.
And what I can do is, as we have for an approved for landscaping, we have an approved shade tree list. We have an approved this. Let me just get into a little bit of verbiage here, which you guys use as rock terminology, and I'll be more than happy to throw something towards you and say, here's what I think would be an approved rock list.
That's a good idea.
All right, that would be really helpful.
So are we tabling this until our next meeting when you can do that?
I would think so, frankly.
Yeah, maybe.
I think the main point is we're not deviating from the current language. And the current language, in my mind, and it seems like the board's mind, is quite clear that we are able to use rocks in flower beds.
Okay.
But you're putting a limit on the amount of rock, so we have to have who's going to determine that and who's going to.
Exactly right.
You can't expect the ARC to go out and do the calculation and then they're going to have to inspect and see that they only didn't put more than that in. You're making it almost beyond the scope of a volunteer.
What is the Scott? Just so I'm clear too, what is the concern with just allowing residents to just use rock in their flower beds? Because right now it says you can't use it for yards, and the deduction is, well, it's either yard or flower bed.
Right.
What's wrong with just leaving it the way it is and saying, well, if you would prefer to pay the extra expense to put nice decorative rock in flower beds, well, as long as, and I agree that we should be specific with what type of rock, size rock, because, I mean, you can get big, large stones that are awful looking. But what about just adding a specific type of rock list rather than a percentage to make enforcement easier?
100%.
In your flower beds.
In your flower beds.
And I just in my own opinion as a landscape owner back in the day is it doesn't lend itself to best practice. 100% of something. If you plant 100% of royal palms, if disease comes through, you're in a pinch. So if we do that, it just provides, like I said, it provides texture. It also provides a little bit more for rain percolation through that mulch, and it also mulch provides you a better weed barrier than the stones do. So that's collectively, that's what I look at. So we have a mixture of media that's there that lends itself to the look that Sandoval is, and I believe is weed barriers. Mulch is a better weed barrier than stone. And again, if we're getting more weeds through stone, what are people going to do? Put more Roundup. And again, it's a community trying to get away from Roundup and all those pesticides. So that's where, in my practice, I would always use a percentage of instead of all of one media.
Well, I'd be more comfortable with Ron's 100% because you can't. How are you going to determine where the 50% line is? That's where I'm having a problem. Is how do you? And then Casey's going to have to send somebody out and measure it 3-4 times a year to make sure they hadn't creeped and added more rock.
Well, and I think too, we're planting plants on 3-foot centers. So does ARC go out with a tape measure and make sure it's everything on 3 foot?
Yes.
So they're measuring that.
Yeah. But they're not calculating volume.
I have a question. Are large rocks allowed, like big chunks of coral?
As per our current docs, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Right now, there's no limitation of any kind.
Right.
All right, so just to be clear, so we're not looking to prohibit rocks, but the interpretation on that lawns was that they were not allowed. The ARC's position was, the ARC's interpretation was that stones were not allowed. No stone or gravel to be substituted for lawns. Lawns being just anything outside, whether it's beds or whatever.
Yeah, I'm reading it here. But I mean,
so the lawns needed to be defined. And that's why they wanted to talk about, landscaping material.
Paving materials shall be used, and maybe it's just shall not be used as a substitute for lawns. It sounds like it's pretty straightforward. They're not saying you can't use it at all. You just can't use it for lawn.
Mm-hmm. Right, but the interpretation was that lawns was more encompassing than just the green grass.
Well, and that's why I'm saying I'm more comfortable with Ron's 100%.
It was your outside. It was the mulch beds. It was everything.
Because you say rocks are only prohibited in the lawn area, so there is no prescription of what you can put into the landscape bed area.
Yeah.
When Scott's saying 50%, that's putting a limitation that you have to enforce.
I would prefer to make compliance as easy as possible for residents, but if we find it to be detrimental to the community, I'm open to it. I do think a list of what type and size rock you're allowed would be helpful. I think we could expound upon that a bit.
All right. So is the plan then to table this till the next meeting until?
Well, I think we could vote on it.
Okay.
With the proviso that Scott's going to provide a list.
I would say vote on it with a list of
approved
rocks going to come.
Yeah, but what if Scott goes off the tracks and comes up with some kind of crazy rocks that the rest of the board doesn't like?
Well, you have to prove the rock list.
He's off his rocks.
Well, there you go. We can approve to allow rocks in landscaping, subject to the list, and then Scott will give us the list, and we can approve the list. Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
All right. So who's going to make the motion?
I think Ron made it already. You just need to restate it.
I'm going to go back to my pickleball motion.
Wait, Ron made it or Scott made it?
No, I think Ron made it.
Scott made one, and then Ron.
There's a motion on the floor that I made.
Right.
So if it needs to be amended.
Well, then restate your motion so we know what's up.
My motion was to allow rocks in existing bed areas at the size of 3/4 inch to 3 inch maximum, not to exceed 50% of existing beds.
Keeping with river rock and neutral color.
Or as defined on the approved list.
Approved rock list.
Which the board will approve on January 28th, the approved list.
Okay. A second? Is there a second?
Well, I'll second, and then we have discussion.
Okay.
And I would like to amend that to eliminate the 50% requirement. So, second my amendment, and then vote to change the original one, and then you can vote on it with the amended.
Assuming Scott accepts that amendment.
Well,
okay.
He can discuss it.
Otherwise, we vote him down and you make another amendment.
Correct. I'm still just, it's just my experience, and I'm just going to go with the 50%. So,
do you want us to vote on that first?
We should.
Okay, then I'll retract my request for amendment.
All right, but you still second his original.
I still second it.
Okay.
So we could discuss it.
All right. So
then we'll vote on it.
Do we need to discuss it further, or we can vote on it now?
I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Well, I've got one question.
Go ahead.
You're talking about mulch is better for keeping weeds down. That's why you want 50%. Well, if that's the case, why wouldn't 100% mulch be better for keeping weeds down than 50% rock?
Because we're probably in a position right now with a lawsuit, I would think, not to get into it with an existing person, and who's going to be the person to tell all the people with rock that they
put
can't
weed
have
mat
it?
under the rock.
So it was a
It's not gonna have
compromise.
weeds.
Well,
Put
what our attorney said was the people that have it, that have in essence been living in adverse possession of that rock, are grandfathered in because we've only got 3 years that we can enforce, right?
Well, it wasn't just that. It's that the language didn't
Is-
support
right.
the position that no rock is allowed
Yeah.
in the flower bed. We don't have to do anything with this language. It's my contention that this is quite clear that allows for rock. And what
Then
we're
why are
doing
we-
is
why are we
further
trying to change
discussing
it?
Restrictions here. All we're doing is further restrictions, and I think we should be very sensitive to restricting our community and have a really strong basis for it.
So if somebody, let's just say somebody buys a house that had a roof that's been dirty for 3 years, it could continue to be dirty because it's statutorily, it's...
No.
They could get an estoppel letter where they can sell that house, but the new owner would be subject
He
to
has to correct it, cure it.
enforcement.
Correct.
Because they bought it dirty and they read the rules that said it's got to be clean. So now the new owner can get fined because they didn't clean it up.
So the same thing would apply for existing rock and beds right now.
Yeah.
But the difference is that we have language that requires the roofs
To be clean.
We don't have language that restricts the use of rocks in beds.
Right.
In flower beds. That's the issue. It was an interpretation
Right.
that you weren't allowed rocks, and when the attorney looked at it and said, well, that is an incorrect interpretation, the language doesn't support that position.
So I think for clarification for the committee, to say, they're asking for you to say either no stone, gravel colored, et cetera, or substitution for lawns, almost to say, but okay in mulch beds. If you want to allow it in the mulch beds or in the plant beds.
So can we just say stone gravel colored is only allowed in mulch beds or in flower beds or
However you
whatever
want to
that?
say it. I
Yeah,
think that's the request.
Basically, just
Yeah, we can strike the whole last sentence and just say
it's only allowed in flower beds or
approved stone.
Well, gravel wouldn't be, right? Because gravel doesn't.
Comment.
Is it okay if I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Get a microphone. You got it. Okay.
I think it's
So the definition of lawn only refers to grass, not the flower beds. So if you were talking about a yard, then we'd be including the flower beds. But the definition of lawn only refers to grass. So if someone was removing the grass for whatever reason, they would have to get approval from the ARC to install gravel or rocks or whatever the case might be. So if they're planting a plant and they want to plant, they have to get approval for it, right?
Right.
And then in that plant, it will have the rocks or whatever substrate's going to be around it. So I think we're overcomplicating it a little bit.
Agreed.
And I just think we need to clarify what lawn is with the ARC committee.
And that's totally agreed. When we researched it, looked it up, and checked, that is
What we found out.
unfortunately for the last many, many years, that's not the way many, many people interpreted. And that's what I think they're just saying, hey, give one way or the other, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. Unfortunately, lawns, yes, I agree, that's what it is, but they want clarification.
They don't have a problem with rock. They just want you to tell them what's allowed.
Right.
Good.
But the interpretation was that rocks were not allowed, only mulch was allowed.
That's correct.
So the question now is, are we going to allow rocks? And we're leaning towards yes. And then
Amount of rocks.
And now how much?
And is Scott going to give us a list at our next board meeting of what particular rocks are acceptable?
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have two options here. One with a limited percentage and approved rocks, and one that we just limit to flower beds with no approved percentage but approved rocks. So let's proceed because we can be here all night.
Well, the motion on the floor is 50% limitation.
Are we ready to take a vote on it?
You know what? Just strike the 50% and just have at it, and I'll provide you with the list of what I believe to be an approved stone for.
Thank you, Scott.
So we'll accept, Don, your amendment to remove the 50%. And then you guys want to vote on that?
Yeah. So did someone second Don's? I'm sorry.
Scott made the motion, Don amended it, or seconded it and amended it.
Right. And who seconded his amendment?
Retracted it.
Did
and
Ron?
then can reinstate it.
Because Scott has accepted that amendment.
Okay.
So if Don seconds the amended motion, we're ready to go.
Voting?
Okay, so we're ready.
Let me just throw one thing out here.
Okay.
What if, like we just said, and then we can vote on this, beds can have approved mulch and/or rocks from an approved list. Can have mulch or rocks from an approved list.
Okay. Again, you could say it three different ways.
So simple.
It is.
That is very simple, though. And the mulch would
That's
have
what
to
we
be
want
listed, too, because the
The
colored
mulch
mulch
is
isn't
anything but
allowed.
red.
That's
Right, and you have an approved mulch list, and you
Approved
have
mulch
an
list and
approved
approved
rock
rock
list.
list.
Okay.
And I think that makes it easy for everyone.
Okay. Can we second that?
And beds
vote?
people have a clear
Well, let's
definition
vote
of
this
beds.
one down, and then we'll do this one again, and then we'll be done. So, all in favor of the amendment, the motion that's on the table?
I have a question, though,
You do it.
because we were talking about the existing. So is this still limited to existing, or now I'm having some work done and I'm gonna?
You're going to put pool in it.
Well, there's the percentage.
Landscaping all around it, so that's not an existing bed, that's a new bed.
I don't
Right.
think we limit to
I don't think
existing.
But we're not
limited to
limiting it now.
existing.
There's no percentage.
Either it's
I take
allowed
it
or it
back.
isn't.
Okay, so the motion is beds can have mulch or rocks from the approved
Well, you have
list.
to. That's not the motion that's on the table. We got to vote.
It's a
this
vote
one out.
right now.
You got to vote this one in or out.
Oh, okay, so Scott's,
The 50% that Scott said, which
Which I struck.
he struck. So
I basically amended my initial motion.
Restate the motion as amended. Somebody.
I don't think we have it.
so allow existing bed area.
Why don't, if we agree with Don, why don't
Red-
we just amend it to Don's language and all vote?
Yeah, we can amend
Can I
it.
amend?
Yeah.
Can I amend the motion to the following language?
Yes.
Beds can have mulch and/or rocks from an approved list.
Correct?
I'll second that amended motion.
And I'll vote yes.
And then you'll have the size and everything.
Correct.
All right, so we're ready to vote? All in favor?
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody, okay. So that motion passes. And when will we see the approved list, or
Next
when?
week.
I can have that next. Yeah, by next meeting I'll have that. Well, I'll have it before the next meeting so that everybody can look at that.
Okay, super, thank you. You good? Mm-hmm. Okay, and now part two, there was a second part. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. So the second clarification is in reference to page 19 of the design review guidelines, the section which addresses all applications for landscaping made to the ARC shall be forwarded to the Landscape Committee for review and approval dealing with any individual residential property. The ARC wishes to clarify reference to landscaping and offer the following language requiring Landscape Committee review. So it would read, all applications for tree removal made to the ARC shall be forwarded to the Landscape Committee for review and approval dealing with any residential property. So only in those instances where there's a tree removal part of the equation, they would seek or solicit landscape committee review.
I think that's consistent with what Scott and I talked about in the parking lot. I think that's consistent with what Scott and I talked about in the parking lot after last meeting, that the landscape was not looking to review every bush that was going in or around a new pool or that kind of stuff. They were just looking for the major things. So I think that's the intent of that.
Correct.
And I would agree with that. You know, it's because the park is going to have to go off the approved plant list for the pools.
And
but if
the
somebody's
rock list.
coming in and saying, I'm redoing all of my landscaping, I'm tearing everything out, I believe that's a major overhaul, which, you know, and again, tree removal is definitely one.
Okay.
Because it doesn't necessarily have to be removed. We could do other things to remediate the problem.
Okay. So, so the motion, I'll make the motion with the language that all application for tree removal made to ARC shall be forwarded to the Landscape Committee for review and approval dealing with any residential property.
I'll second it.
Okay, Bill. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, perfecto. The motion passes. All right. No, I think we have gate strikes. Gate strikes. Ms. Casey.
Gate strikes.
Last month we talked that Casey was going to do a study, right?
A couple different items, yes, from the last meeting. So for the last meeting, the Board of Directors requested management to document gate strikes and also inquire on exit gate camera installation cost. So I documented every time someone called in or Envera sent us a report of a gate strike, as well as got quotations for exit cameras. The first summary, which the board was in the board packet, was that we had 4 gate strikes in December. The first one that was reported by Mr. Spooner and Ms. Conway, we did not receive any reports from Envera because it was an exit gate, and they don't monitor those with the cameras. The next one was Veterans Resident Entrance Gate, was reported by Mr. DeFilippis, and we did receive a report shortly after. Envera sent us a follow-up report. It was a bicyclist, which they could not connect to an address on that one. The next one was Trafalgar Resident Gate, and it was reported by Envera only to GM via phone call. Security was able to repair. I put security/staff. They were not able to connect this gate strike to a resident or anyone. It was an out-of-state tag, and they weren't able to connect it to anyone. The next one was Veterans Gate, resident side, reported by Envera to GM via call, security/staff repaired. We are still waiting. That one took place on 12/31/2020, so we are waiting to see if we can connect that one to a resident or someone. So that was a summary for December. And then we did get quotes for the exit gates to have cameras. I asked if we could utilize anything that's currently in place. They said no. Those they're not the type of eye that they need to utilize to catch a tag. They're not tag reading cameras. And so the proposals to install exit gates, cameras at each exit gate, was approximately $10,000. Let me make sure I correct that. 1, 2, 3. Yes. And then, so that's what I have for the update on the gate strikes. Camera quote.
Is there any
idea.
increased cost to monitoring the exit gates from Bureau? Will they still notify us?
I didn't get that far. Let's see, monthly. I'm sorry.
I thought
Service and maintenance plan. Yes, $30. I thought that was the financing. So $30, $60, $90. I believe the service and maintenance plan is like $90 a month.
Is that the monthly investment total?
So to
Or
get
is that different?
that's what I'm the way that I'm reading it is that Monthly investment total. Yes.
Okay, so that's the additional monthly. Okay.
Yep. And then the 10,078.57 is the installation.
So the cameras we have on the entrance gates are sufficient, and these replace cameras on the exit gates where we currently have cameras.
Right. No
Which to
cameras
clear,
on
we have
exit.
cameras. They're not being utilized. They're not tag reader cameras, and that's what a lot of residents see. There's cameras there, and so it seems like, but they are not tag reading cameras, and we're not able each time someone strikes to pick up a tag number.
So what are those cameras providing for us, and are they part of Envira's system, the existing ones?
They are able to see them, but they're not tag reading. So they're security, but they're not tag reading.
Okay, so there is value to the ones that are there. They're just not germane to what we're trying to accomplish.
It doesn't help with what we're trying to accomplish.
We could see somebody scaling the fence at night if need be, but other than that, it's okay. So $10,000 for the investment to read the tags, and we didn't recover anything in December so far from gate strikes. So it would seem to me that if we're looking at a return on our investment, it's almost zero.
Well, I think generally speaking, it's insignificant.
I just wish there was a better way for Envira to track those people, but I understand if it's an out-of-state tag or whatever, but it just seems like every time we have an issue, Envira says
They can't
they can't.
decipher.
Yeah.
Right. No, it's frustrating.
Do you have a total for the 2020 of how much we recovered in dollars from gate strikes?
The way that it was tracked prior to me coming along is it wasn't just gone to. It wasn't. It was a miscellaneous. If there was even, I don't know that you guys actually had a fining committee though in place consistently either. So that combination of not having the hearings, along with
so if the money comes
not
in, does it go
properly.
into a line item, or how is it recorded?
It's supposed to, yes, go into a gate strike. There's a miscellaneous item. So apparently, if there was anything into, I don't know, but if anything was collected, it potentially went to miscellaneous line item. Other income.
Yeah, and then my other question would be on the ARC deed restrictions. I mean, there's been some fining going on. What are the collections on those?
Again, I am not aware of anyone paying. There were some that were rescinded due to documentation. But you have to, I mean, some of them are on foreclosure homes, some of them are on.
Is it worth the committee's time to go through all these hearings and everything if you find them and you don't collect them?
Well, you have to, I would look at, we have a list of people, to over 200 plus violations sent, and then in compliance, you get down to like 4 had to go to a hearing.
Yeah, but my question
you're
is, how much have we
accomplishing-
collected ever?
Well, I don't know that the fining is the goal. The goal is
it's not
to get
the
into
goal,
compliance.
but it's also if you're saying you're doing something, are you doing it or are you not doing it?
It's going to their account and they're getting charged the fine, and then once it sits delinquent, the use rights are getting suspended. So I mean, it's the attempt is there.
Okay.
Outside of spending a bunch of legal costs, which is even more cumbersome.
Are we talking strictly gated?
Well, I've broadened it just.
Yeah, at this point, it's gate hits.
But I did step out of that. But I just, my point is we're doing fining, and does it mean anything?
Well, in terms of the exit gates, the brand new gate that's now bent.
Yeah.
That would be a civil action. That would be in addition, if it was a resident or non-resident, that would be a small claims. So that would be material, and we can expect that to happen in the future also. I still don't think that we
could
is
fix it
doing
for
their
less
job
than
properly
10,000.
with capturing.
You and I could go in there and fix it.
The gate hits. I think we see
Mm-hmm.
arms down every single
bracket
day,
off,
and for
straighten them up,
November, for
put it
all
back
the
together.
gates I see 7.
So I inquired on that, Ron, and per Envira, and again, I can't, They're saying some of it is malfunction as well. So they document it as the arm went up, had a malfunction, and didn't go down, but they checked the film and the car did not actually hit it.
Okay, so we're saying sometimes when it's stuck up.
Stuck down, stuck up, right.
Technical.
Mm-hmm. I saw
But
that on some of
whose
them.
responsibility is that to fix, though, when there's a malfunction on the gate that wasn't caused by a strike?
They can reset it. They'll reset it. Sometimes it's just within a phone call.
But so are they monitoring that when it gets stuck, and then they can virtually reset it?
They get alerts. They monitor.
Oftentimes we call them, though. We
Well,
don't
that's,
get
I mean,
the
I guess
alert.
that's my question. Is it seems like those bars are up or broken a lot, more than what we're seeing from gate strikes. So I guess a lot of them are malfunctions.
December was a low month. I mean, surprisingly low. We were talking about that
We were
maybe
shocked.
because
every week we were like,
school was out. I mean,
Maybe.
people were home from work. I don't know, but
Maybe
it
that's
was,
what it was.
the one time I was gonna try to track it. It was very small. So I asked Invera to send us over that November one that I put in the board packet, and quite a bit was, malfunction, or they couldn't get, or a bicyclist. You'd be surprised how many bicycles.
I'm going to ask a couple of other questions. There's two bars that are not lit. The exit gate at Veterans, the entrance gate at Pine Island. Is there any reason why what's wrong? Why the one out here is not plugged in? But if it's plugged in, maybe it's not working. But why isn't that fixed?
So I would like to fix it all. We came to the end of the year, and we had got proposals for a couple of the bars, the Trafalgar one, and the Veterans. I think it actually. So with the monies of gate strike repairs and everything like that, what we were able to do is the Veterans. And now going into 2021, repairs and maintenance for the property, that's on the list to do.
The Veterans Gate drop bar, the light's not.
There's a piece that plugs into it, and so the security guard brought us the piece a while ago, and that's when I got proposals for it.
That's been like that for months.
Don't we pay, though, a monthly maintenance fee towards
Not for repair, or replacement, rather.
Well, I mean, this is a repair. Both of those, I think, that one and the one in
I'll pull the quote.
Pine Island.
I'll pull the quote and let you know. I'm pretty for certain that there's a piece that's missing that was broken when they came out and gave me the proposals for both gates. But either way, it is on the list, all of them to be replaced, up and running, and look good. But it was $300 a strip, maybe more. So
I have a question. Do we carry spares on hand?
For the light strips?
Well,
No.
or the arms, either one, because we know they're going to get hit. Rather than
replacement of the actual bars does not take place. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time. It's putting it back on.
Well, I've seen them run over before.
But some of them do look pretty beat up.
Yeah, some are
They do. They look bad.
Some are mangled, yeah.
They look bad. They got ties on them. Half of them are lit.
Yeah.
And when you, at nighttime, if you have one that's lit 80% of the time and 20 it's not lit, there's a danger there, frankly, that people are expecting to see it. Not everybody has the same eyesight, Yeah. I think that we need to be consistent, and if an arm is out, we need to have a replacement arm immediate or fixed immediately.
I just don't understand why we've got two that have been out for months. I think they need to be lit.
I think going forward, we have to just emphasize that's a priority.
Could we possibly just get, before the next meeting, a copy of what is, or just a copy of the maintenance agreement as to what is included? Because I'd be curious. I would think that if we're paying X amount a month, that if there is a problem with a light bar or whatever, they should be out there. But we have to know what's included.
And we have them on I've got the proposals. We're proceeding forward. We're getting them all. But as far as us saying, hey, this got hit and all of our lights are broken, we want new ones for free, that's not maintenance in their eyes. But I'll forward you that.
I get the hit. I totally understand that. But I want to see what's inclusive with their maintenance, because if they're not coming out and fixing anything and charging us, then what are we paying maintenance for?
Okay.
So
That's what it looks like.
Rather than a car, I don't think that's a car problem. I wonder if that's an install.
It could be, I'm not sure. If someone were to hit it
Why it's moving, it could have done that, but there should be marks on it.
I mean, it just looks to me like the closer pulled those bars farther than the gate would go.
It
It
gives.
does seem like that. What do you think, Al?
I thought so.
I haven't looked at it up close, but either that or the end of the gate caught on the vehicle, and while the arm was pulling, yeah.
But there should be some marks, then
You would think so, yeah. I haven't looked at it.
What you're talking about as far as the gates, I've seen on some of your gate sewers pulled. I've seen where just gate malfunctions have actually over on Tree Line, one of the communities over there. So it had opened up, the end limit switch within the controller went bad. It thought it closed, it didn't. So the next car comes up, and it actually tried to open again. It literally ripped the welds off of it and damaged the gate. We had to call a special company out to actually come and re-weld the gate out there. So some of that actually can be just from malfunctions of the controller. When you're not seeing those kinds of strikes, you can see. I've seen worse damage on gates just from controller malfunctions.
Yeah, our veterans
It's a
brand new.
It happens within, I believe, a couple of weeks of installation.
Yeah.
And now we're just living with it.
I mean, I think these kind of things, I think, will really make the community that look good. As far as just look like, they let all this stuff go. One bar is not working, the gate's bent.
Right. Well managed.
Yeah.
So, Casey, in the board packet, you did have the maintenance, the service and maintenance agreement. I don't know if this was in relation to cameras that they were installing.
That was a part
Just cameras?
of this proposal.
The service and maintenance, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that was informational, right? All right. Next on the schedule, we have the 2021 schedule of monthly board meetings. So if the board wishes to continue the last Thursday of the month. Oh, okay. All right. I just want to discuss, we have the alternative date for Thanksgiving, that Thursday, December 30th. Do we want to have an alternative date like we did this year, Thursday, January 6th, rather than try to schedule the board meeting between Christmas and New Year's?
Yeah.
So we would modify it, Bill, then to include Thursday, January 6th, 2022.
We're almost doing so on 31st.
All right. So Bill's motion was to approve it as presented. I modified it to include the Thursday, January 6th.
Definite or as an alternative?
As an alternative.
So we could still meet on the 30th.
Yeah. Somebody want to second it?
Second.
All right, Scott. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfecto. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, then we have the levies of fines and suspensions.
Well, you guys could read my summary that I put, but we have one that the fining committee has voted to approve. $1,000 fine was for pressure washing, and it's to fine account number 17532.
So those, okay, so 17532, a $1,000 fine. The covenants agreed with the fine to move forward with the fine, right?
Correct.
All right.
So the board, if they, if you want to vote to approve or not.
All right, so I'll make the motion. Account 17532 to fine the $1,000 as the covenants recommended.
Our second page is just the account number is on the second page. So the right
here in the
on the first cover page, the board will need to vote to approve the one recommended by the fining committee
in the large
to be
print,
fined
Bill.
$1,000 for pressure washing. We typically have more, and I line them up differently, but this is just the one.
All right. Was there a second? Bill? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, Casey, next we have the
modification of
the
timelines.
Yeah.
So in 2019, proposed resolution establishing finding and suspensions, the attached that you'll see in your board packet gives clarification for recommendations that Becker provided back in 2019. They did not show on record that this was ever voted on and approved, accepted. So with conversations in the last meeting, management was looking for, and the board as well, to extend, and we were looking for clarification. So at the last board meeting, the 14 days was changed to 30 days based on the vote. If you review this, it does provide, the opinion recommendation is 20 days for the mail out. The board may want to vote to adopt the attached. And also the attached does mention the board can delegate to management the first process, the mail outs, how we're operating right now, and then have the Covenants Committee proceed with the hearing. It's a lot of information in here. I think my question would be, do we want to stick to the 30 days or go with the 20 days or
Yeah, I think we stick with I would suggest sticking with the 30 days also, because we discussed it.
Thank you. All right.
Was that it?
So, yes.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the noise policy. Ron, this was something that you raised last board meeting, suggesting that it's an issue that we need to discuss. We were able to pull the draft policy that the former board, so some of you were involved with this, Cape Coral Council, there was a simultaneous effort. They were trying to get their noise ordinance passed, which they ended up passing the end of December. So the former, in January, or actually November, December, and January, the former general manager, Jerry Evans, came up with a noise enforcement policy that was tabled at the November meeting and the December meeting. And then I'm not sure what happened at the January meeting, so I'm hoping somebody can fill in the dots. But with the noise, here within the community, there were concerns about dog barking and parakeets and
yeah.
But Ron, you were talking about vehicles. I don't know if it was the muffler or the music, the bass,
we
or
have
both.
Again, 98% of the residents are fine. 2%, for whatever reason, feel it's appropriate to have these large speakers, and often late at night, literally shake residents' houses. I've been contacted multiple times about this, and I think that we should allow security to provide some enforcement. Unfortunately, simply communicating to residents to be respectful and not wake up the residents with extreme bass and loud music has not worked. So I think it's something for this board to discuss and take a position on. But I've heard from enough residents that it's a concern, and I don't disagree with them, frankly. I think that if you want to blast music at, late at night or really early in the morning to a point where a home shakes, that's a problem. And I think that we have to set our own standards if they're not willing to set their standards. And right now, we don't have the ability to do any enforcement at all, it's my understanding. I do think getting into wind chimes is an overreach. But I think enforcing basic common sense policies like not blasting music to a point where your home shakes is more of a common sense thing. That's my 2 cents.
My question is, these policies that were written by our attorney, usually multiple pages long, you fall asleep before you get to
Right.
Can't we do these things a little more concisely?
Yeah, and frankly, that's why this policy failed. Because it was so, it was, number one, it was an overreach. Number two, it was very convoluted. And for all the words written in here, it didn't provide much guidance, ironically. I I think we need to have a very straightforward, if we so choose to go down that road, policy that helps security enforce it and helps residents comply. And certainly this is not it. And this is why the motion failed. I think that there should be a basic acceptable volume level in terms of vehicles.
Does First Service have a noise policy that they would recommend?
I'm not familiar with any communities. Other HOAs that I oversee, I actually have not had this as a complaint that has come up as far as noise, as far as these kinds of vehicles. So I'm not familiar with any that any of my communities actually have in place.
What would be your recommendation about the same 3 or 4 vehicles driving down about midnight, literally shaking the homes along the main boulevard? What would be your recommendation on how to deal with that from a community?
So there's a couple ways to go about this, but I can understand why the attorney's opinion or suggestion was so lengthy, because it's very difficult to enforce, especially when you get legal involved, right? But a lot of the associations that I'm familiar with that enforce sound requirements address it from a nuisance perspective. As soon as it becomes a nuisance, and nuisance is a very broad description, then it can be a violation. Now, if you're looking to find that homeowner and take it to legal, it'll never stand up. But it won't stop you from sending letters, violation letters, to that homeowner. But you just don't have teeth to it.
And that is a common sense. We do have a nuisance provision that has we've interpreted quite broadly. Yeah. And they would be subject to a hearing. Yeah. What I think we want to do is be able to communicate enforcement to the residents.
Sure.
And it sounds like what we can do is do it through that nuisance provision, but establish a very basic policy that's saying that blasting music to a point that it's shaking homes is not going to be acceptable, and we will consider it as a nuisance and proceed with the violation. And if they disagree, they will have a hearing in front of other residents. That is exactly the type of approach I would recommend, and it's a common sense approach. But
I think, though, let's just say it's not vehicle related, though, but let's just say it's site related, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and every Saturday night the same person has these parties that the music's blasting. So, and refresh my memory, because I was around but I just don't remember, why didn't we adopt the city's noise ordinance when it came to decibel levels and things like that? Because nuisance, again, it's very ambiguous, right? What's a nuisance to me? I might like heavy metal at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you might not like it. So that's too gray for me. I would rather see it attached a little bit more to something where we can get that remedied immediately. The person doesn't play the music from 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning and waiting for Casey to violate them.
Why would the neighbor not call?
Yeah, why would you not call Cape Coral
Well, that's what I'm saying.
to enforce it?
That doesn't need to be in any rule.
Correct.
After 11 o'clock, you
and
call
what about where the
city.
vehicles pull in with the base? I mean, in order to catch them and find them, the neighbor should call and say, this address, this vehicle with this base wakes me up at X, Y, and Z time. So
well,
I guess I'm not getting...
She's got to run out of the house and chase the car down. I mean, it's...
No. I thought I just was, if they pulled in...
It's a regular occurrence.
It is a regular occurrence, but it's by multiple vehicles.
Oh, I see.
That's why I'm looking for something where we could have immediate teeth and not something down the road at a hearing. And that's why I was saying you can, and I always recommend people call 911 if you think it's an issue. Don't call security, because they have no enforcement power.
Right.
If it's a suspicious person or car, call 911. If it's a noise complaint, complain to the police, and that way we can have a cure immediately to the problem, but then document it if we have some provisions in there. If we know the neighbor, we can follow up that way. But I'd like to see something where we refer to a noise complaint to the city ordinance, attach it to that document where we can cite somebody, and there it is right there, along with something you're talking about.
Well, I think it's a more difficult road to go the city route. I think if we, and remember, I know the term nuisance is very general, But that is the basis in which we can establish a policy. That is our authority to establish a policy, which we then convey to the community. And once we convey it to the community, we can authorize our security, who is working during those hours, that if they hear this, they can go identify the vehicle, the license plate number, corroborate it with Envira, and then issue a fine based upon that. To me, that's much more, we'll get a quicker reaction there than we would through the city. Otherwise, you'd be having to go yourself identify the vehicle at the time, call up the city, and it seems to me that its enforcement is much less likely in that scenario, unless you're dealing with a dwelling. But in my experience, at least the complaints that residents have conveyed to me is that there are a handful of cars that are just over the top with this, and it's disturbing they're literally waking
Sure.
up.
No, I was just looking for something more, with more coverage than just a moving vehicle as a noise complaint as to certain other things. I mean,
and we have that. They have adopted the noise policy. So that's an additional route that we can go.
Yeah.
But we have the ability, based upon our nuisance policy, to establish that what is and what isn't acceptable in terms of a noise level. And I think if we do that, we can convey it quite clearly and give our security some enforcement ability.
so do we attach like a decibel level to it, or how do we?
How do you measure that?
But how would you
though?
measure that exactly?
Well, I know the city comes out with a decibel meter.
And like barking dogs.
Right.
Are these?
You can have a policy,
That's not
and
gonna
you can violate them, but you can't collect it. So
Well,
that's
you-
kind of like what Don was saying about the gate strikes.
Is
If
it
you're not
worth
going
it?
to collect it, then what use is the policy?
Well, you could violate them. They're going to go before.
Are these Sandoval cars, you think?
Yes. Well, I assume.
Okay.
Unless they're guests, we should have the ability to track who they are. Unless the board thinks it's acceptable that the same cars are coming through our community, waking up these residents at 1 and 2 in the morning every other night. That's acceptable to you. It's okay.
Well, I don't think it's not acceptable to me.
Right.
What wouldn't be
Have they
acceptable
tried calling
is
the police?
to have a process that takes a month, and 10 times during that month, that same poor person's getting woken up because we're waiting for a protracted process. I wanted something that's more expeditious.
And that's a good point. I don't think we're under the same guidelines. I think we could.
Right, you can do-
We're not
I think-
under the deed restriction guidelines. This fine could be issued immediately. We don't have a cure period. It would be
Perfect.
similar to our harassment of staff. Once it happens, there isn't like, don't go and attack staff anymore for 1 month. You have a fine issued because you did this, and the fine is.
So there is
retroactive.
immediacy to that.
Exactly right.
But if it's not
Same thing for, like,
collectible, what good is the
fireworks.
fine?
Well, I think
Immediate.
Immediate.
right, yeah. Somebody say fireworks. But again, even if the fine's not collected, then we're taking away their access and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
So there's
and it is attached to the house. So when there's a conveyance of the home, we do recoup that.
a portion of it.
Maybe.
Well, we should, unless it's a foreclosure situation.
Well, they also owe us $10,000 in back assessments.
Right.
So do we need to look at what our current nuisance policy is and elaborate on that? Like, what's next steps from here?
I think the nuisance policy that we have is just way overly broad. What I can do is put together some language that's very short and tight, and get it approved by legal. And then what we can do is vote on it. Then we send out a policy to the community saying that this is the approach that we're going to take for enforcement. And then we authorize our security company that if they're driving around and they encounter this, at least they can do something about it. And it's a way to educate, unfortunately, our residents. The small percentage that's affecting the large percentage.
Would this also cover loud music on the basketball courts or the volleyball?
Well, there's no music allowed on the basketball courts at all, or any, at all. We've already
Jim
voted
Swigert
on that.
wants to know if you can put rocks around these mailboxes.
I told him, yeah.
But are we enforcing it?
Excuse me?
Are we enforcing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Security is well aware, right, Casey, that no audible music is allowed.
Okay.
And they are enforcing that.
Okay.
So there's no motion, but I guess with the authority of the board, I can approach caves and.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's good.
now this policy here said it was typically related to a barking dog. So how will your policy relate to a barking dog?
Well, I guess that's a good question, whether we want to expand it to
The nuisance policy is related to barking dog?
to a barking dog.
Noise
He's
policy.
talking about the offending noise
Yep.
policy.
Didn't we say we were going to abandon that and write builds language into the nuisance policy?
Yeah, but I would like input from the board in terms of what we want covered. Do we want? I'm not a big proponent of enforcing wind chimes, but I know these are all complaints that we have to hear.
It just depends if you're sitting for one.
You know, unless they're like these.
The thing is that each one of these applies if it's next door to you.
I guess so. And so let me know what you want included, and what we can do is do an analysis.
But I mean, this policy, if your neighbor's dog is barking, you have to make the complaint and then wait 2 weeks. And if he barks, he can be barking the entire 2 weeks, and then you make another complaint,
And then
he
you
barks
get-
another 2 weeks.
then you get two
and then you have to
statements.
get 2 of your neighbors to verify that the dog is still barking.
No, we can do better than that.
Did you sign off on that? Is this in play?
No, it's not in play.
Yeah, it's not in play. It's still draft, right? That's
So,
what I thought.
I'll tell you what. Why don't you let me? I'll expand it a bit to
So
cover
we are
those
talking
issues
about
and
this
not
one,
make
right?
it so cumbersome.
And
to issue
right.
a fine.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And I'll present it.
It could be
at the next board
much
meeting.
more concise and just very specific.
And if you have, and in the meantime, I am the liaison that you could communicate to me anything that you want along the lines. But I know it's late, and I don't want to hold us up on this, and so there's no formal vote. So I'll do it on an individual basis with each issue. So we can proceed now.
Okay, great.
Put item 17, our solicitation for additional agenda items on the next board meeting.
So, yeah, we're going to proceed, right? So
Excellent.
for the additional agenda items, anybody have anything?
I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about our pool heater situation.
Okay.
I've been monitoring that for about the last week. And prior to last weekend, we had a kind of a cold snap.
Right.
And I think it got down into the high 40s. And that equipment doesn't function at that temperature. Our pool was set up with 10 heat pumps. And a heat pump basically works by sucking the heat out of the air and putting it into the water. At 47 degrees, there's not much heat in the air to get sucked out, so they do not work. Last few days, they came in and actually, prior to that, there were only 6 of 10 units working out there, so we were not working at 100%. Those have since been repaired. But I've checked it the last couple days since it's been repaired. Now, yesterday afternoon, it got up to around 72 degrees outside, and the water temperature had heated up to a brisk 74 degrees. And this is with 10 units running. All 10 of them are running. And last evening, it was up to 74 degrees. This morning, it was back down around 72, and just prior to when I came here to this meeting, it was up to about 75. That's with 10 units running 24 hours. It only brought it up about 3 to 4 degrees. So, we need to let the community know that that's the best we can do. They're not being shut off at night. They don't shut off by themselves. Unless it gets way below 50 degrees, and then the units...
They'll freeze up.
It is to prevent them from freezing up, because they produce ice which will damage the unit. So then they do shut down.
So they continue to run, they're inefficient because it's taken the cold air.
Well,
Do they continue to
unless
run?
it gets down below 50.
Right.
And then they will shut down You know, but as soon as it gets above 50 degrees, then they'll turn on again, and you know, at 55 degrees, they'll be working, and all 10 of them will be running, and our electric meter will be spinning like crazy,
Right.
and we're barely putting any heat into that pool. So,
how long on average does it take to actually get that pool to a normal temperature? Like,
well,
what is it normally supposed to be
maintained? You know, this last weekend when it got up to, what was it, 82, 83 degrees, and we only had 6 units working, it heated up to 84, and they're all set at 84 degrees, and they all shut down because it reached 84 degrees. But then, you know, towards the beginning of this week, we had the cold spell, and you know, the temperature dropped like 10 degrees in the pool, and then they just can't keep up.
Pull it up.
Yeah.
Do we have, or Casey, don't we have a pool company that does our pool maintenance, or are they just a chemical check?
No, we have two. We have the pool, the regular maintenance pool, who monitors the heating, and I have it documented. Like on 12/30, the temperature was 78 degrees, and then the heaters went down on the 31st, and then on the 28th, it was back up to 82 degrees. So he monitors the temperature. He's supposed to monitor the heaters. Sometimes he'll leave, like if there's too much debris that gets in the filters, the heaters will shut down as well. So then there's a separate company, Done Right, who just serviced our heaters, had them up and running right before the cold season. But you can see as soon as the cold season started taking place and those heaters really had to be utilized, that's when a malfunction here, this went on. So we have 2 different companies, one to service the heaters, one that just monitors the pool maintenance.
Okay, because I was worried because a volunteer shouldn't find out that only 60% of our heaters are working. We thank you for that, but that should be, somebody should be picking that up on a daily basis.
It should have been picked up. One of the heat pumps had a damaged keyboard, so that heat pump was not functioning. 2 of them were shut down on high freon pressure, and 1 of them was shut down on low freon pressure. So the repair company came in and fixed the 3 with the pressure problems, and then Don, the pool man, he told me this morning that he's the one that put in the new keyboard, which was, you know, as long as you have the keyboard, it's like a 5-minute fix. But I don't know, you know, I didn't, until I got an email from a resident complaining about it, I didn't know that there was any problem at all. And when I got that letter, I came in and I looked and found there were 4 units were down.
Are those 10 units on a separate meter?
I don't believe so, but someone told me a couple of years ago that we spend over $30,000 a year in heat costs.
Yeah, I think that's
so
that's the number.
So,
Are you talking about electrical bill?
Yeah.
I feel like it's separated out.
Maybe
so on the on the spreadsheet we do for LCEC, I'll look and see.
Okay.
We may break
I think
that
it's
out.
in the 30,000 range as well.
but that might include the pumps and all that too.
Yeah,
I don't
electrical.
know.
Right. I'll take
You know,
a
it
look
might
and
be
I'll let you
everything
know.
over there.
Because what LCEC has, and I'm pretty sure they do it for commercials too, because I do it for my house. You can go in and create through their portal a usage, and they will tell you your refrigerator use this, your pool pump use this, your air conditioning use this. So if it's available to commercial, I would like them to come in here and do an energy audit, maybe post-construction or whatever, and see, because I know there's options. We talked about geothermal for the pools, because if it's costing us $30,000 a year to heat water, I would think that the return on our investment for geothermal or something would pay dividends in the long run.
Well, to replace the heaters would be, I believe it's like $50,000 to $60,000, and I think geothermal. Sean looked at that, and it
that was
probably
years
triple
ago.
that, or at least. I don't know what the figures he got were exactly.
I don't remember the numbers.
All I remember is it was very expensive.
And I think maybe LCEC can give us some
That was
direction.
going to be underneath the lake. They were going to run the pipes under the lake. But, you know, the thing that the residents need to know is, you know, when the weather gets cold, you know, the water's going to, and the pool's going to be chilly too. You know, you know, if it dips down to 37 degrees, which it does sometimes here, it's going to be cold swimming.
Absolutely.
And we don't guarantee 84 degrees 365 days a year.
Can I just ask a question too? Casey, I know you said the storage pods were out in the parking lot for the gym equipment. Is that inclusive of gym equipment with electronics? Because I thought we talked about them having to go into an air-conditioned storage area.
We did speak with them, and they said, I spoke with the general contractor, and I'm sorry I haven't updated you because it's been a very busy week. I did speak with the GC that's on site and the fitness equipment. If they can get this room done in the cool months and be done by April, which he really thinks he does, then those pieces of equipment should be fine in that, in the pods.
Okay.
So it's when you get into the really high humidity months. And apparently this is on target to be...
This is a 4-month project here. This one.
So...
Yeah, my only concern is what he says, and then we come in with a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 bill for keypads or whatever because of moisture. Would it have been worth the money to put them in storage than to take the risk?
Well, is there any reason we couldn't put a dehumidifier in one of those pods?
Right.
All it takes is an extension cord.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to pull off. They're coming out on Wednesday, the whole team. So that's when we're going to decide. We're going to put them towards the back open or the doors, and that way, if there's a problem, we can monitor them and move them.
I'm just more confident with the equipment manufacturer or whomever telling me than a GC is as to what the humidity levels are going to do to that.
This was also not the sales guy that recommended. It was the fitness equipment guy that's coming to move.
Okay. All right. And my other question is, I know there were a lot of complaints this year about Christmas decorations and all of that stuff, and I get it was a COVID year, and we were in transition with new staff and everything. But for the caliber that Sandoval is, I think we should probably take an inventory of our existing Christmas decorations, and I just think we can improve on that. I know it costs money, but maybe I think it's time to probably scrap a lot of the stuff we have, because I know a lot of the lights weren't working on the gates, and it's just like anything else. It's not representative of the caliber community that we live in. So I think the board might want to consider reevaluating, and maybe even first service. I know there's companies that come out and will decorate your community and things and go up the palms with lights. So if you've had any experience with that, I'd like to see us maybe next year have something a little bit more Sandoval-esque.
I can attest to what was available is old and mangled and not much to work with. Secondly, we've already talked about June 1st, asking for a holiday committee for Halloween and Christmas, and, scope out lights, garland, tree, everything, and come in then with a budget request.
And there was with and I totally agree, because there's companies that can go, but just even some of the palms, it would be really nice. That's just standard. But with the gates, there was a change in the direction of the gate. So the outlets that were utilized last year, we weren't able to utilize those because of the swinging position. So we actually had to have outlets installed. So moving forward, at least the gate lights will actually work. But yeah, it needs to be stepped up for sure. So I think getting quotes early on in a committee, and there's several people that enjoy decorating and coming out that volunteered. So. All right, so new.
All right, and I just have a motion to authorize the association to execute the annual Community Association Authority to represent and retainer agreement as presented, naming Becker and Polikoff to continue as the association's legal counsel. They sent us the documentation to hold them at their annual retainer fee is $200. It's due February 28th. So if the board agrees, I'd like to get a second to the motion.
I'll second.
Melanie. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, perfecto.
Do you want to sign that tonight? No, okay.
Yeah, I sent you the email. You have it there? Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
I'll sign
if you want to sign it.
Okay,
Perfect.
super, thanks. All right, so that concludes, unless anybody has any last comments, that concludes our agenda items. If there's a motion to adjourn. All right, Ron, second?
Second.
All right. And open forum comments?
None at this time.
Yay, yippee. Thank you, everybody.